Welcome to our council budget meeting for November 23rd. We're also happy to be back here for the third time in 6 days, I'm sure. To open the meeting, I will take any declarations of pecuniary interest. Councillor Nicol?
I will declare one for the West Nipissing Fire and Police Services portion, and I've provided the paperwork.
Thank you. Any other declarations? Okay, hearing none. Madam Clerk, do you have a resolution?
It is moved by Councillor Tacey and seconded by Councillor Crushane. Be it resolved that the agenda for the council budget meeting of November the 23rd, 2023 be adopted as presented.
All in favor? Carried. And with that, it would give me great pleasure to turn the floor over to our CAO, Mr. Barbeau, to continue with the 2024 budget presentation, moving into our capital budget.
Thanks. No, really, thanks. Yeah, so tonight, so just a bit of a recap. Obviously, on Saturday, we provided you with the overall budget document, and we provided you with the description of where, what the financial situation is at this point, and we indicated that during this process, given the fact that it's new, Ms. Craddock and I received the submissions from the department heads, and I'll probably, because I'm tired, I'll probably say a lot of politically correct statements, but it used to call it a wish list. It's not a wish list. It's what the department heads need to provide the service at the quality that they're trained and that they should be providing. So when there are increases that are requested in certain areas, it's because they need the money, as we saw in the presentation as one example of it, but a very big example from the Mr. St. Pierre from DM Wills. You can tell that we have an infrastructure deficit. And so we also had a review that said our own source funding is below what it should be. And so that is not something that elected officials want to hear. And my job with working with staff is recognizing that, but also trying to get us to a level that will be sustainable for not just this term, but for future terms. And the more that we push that down the road, the more the deficit grows and the more we have difficulty. So we're at an increase rate now of 5.3%. What I indicated at the end of Saturday is that you've got a good overview. You should have an understanding now. You've had it for a week. You should also, if you have questions, be able to raise those. Now, at the end, and what I indicated is tonight is more of the, which is also a misnomer, what you get for the money kind of thing. Well, a lot of what you were presented are things that are just operationally, and that's what you get mostly for the money anyway. You get the people doing the work that you want to do. But the actual capital and the external information and the projects, that's what we want to present to you tonight to let you know, given this level of expenditure, this is the recommendations from the different departments as to where it's going to go. So prior to calling on Public Works, though, there were a couple questions that were raised by a few councillors. I remember Councillor Fern and also Councillor Gagne raising some questions. So I will pass it to Elisa to provide to you some of the responses and some of the information that you requested before we get to presenting the capital. Pardon me?
I'm going to give him the paper.
Do you want some help? Or?
Yeah, if you want to go start outside of him. Yeah. Okay. Yes. I think it's like, for engineering, you'll give you down,
Yeah.
the last guy standing.
Thank you.
I'd buy it. I'll tell you how big it is. You are, your worship. Get your copy. Read it. All right. Start your car later. Would you like anything else? Your coat, your. Oh, I didn't.
I gave you some information, and a lot of it's information that was, well, it's all information that was already in the book. It's just in some different formats for you, so you can see things a little bit differently. I'm going to start with the one double-sided print. Got taxation still at the top of it. So this was the same as the summary that's in your workbook from last week. But what I've done is I've pulled out all the transfers from reserve and transfers to reserve onto their own lines. And so then you'll be able to see, you know, if you look at just revenues or you look at just expenses, that's just the change in sort of the operating expenses without having the reserve amounts in there, okay? So if we're looking at Public Works, you'll see, you know, revenue has stayed the same. You'll see expenses changed by, the operating expenses changed by 374, but the transfers to reserve changed by the 475. So the total Public Works change was at 849, which will match what you see in your book as far as the total Public Works, just so you can see that what's actually operating versus capital and things like that. So this is just sort of a bit of a different way of looking at the summary for the changes that have happened in this current budget. It all balances to the same. It pulls out the reserves, so you can see what's happening with the reserves a little bit differently. Yeah, and you can see then following along that one is probably then the one that that Jay handed out with the blue on it. And this is oh, sorry.
The one that you were talking about, is that just operational?
So yes, so I'll show you what happens with capital in a minute, but yes,
Okay.
yeah, that is operational, yeah. But then I'm actually gonna change I'm actually gonna take a look at, where's the other one you had, Jake? Go to my sheet here. There's one that's change in capital. So when you look at change in capital, you notice that it's zeros all the way across. And this is because that is actually how we budget our capital. So our capital expenditures, you'll see the expenditures may go up or down, the expenditures may shift, but the overall impact from capital is zero, because the impact that hits the tax dollars is that transfer to reserve stuff. So when they plan on capital work, we either have grants or we have reserves to pay for it. You know, that's how we have done the transfer. We haven't used, you know, straight tax dollars to coming from it. So when I look at, you know, is that first page just operating? Yes, that first page is just operating, because you can see the transfers to reserve. That's the only part that hits the capital budget. Your capital budget is going to balance out to zero, even though the amounts have obviously changed from year to year on what they are. And I'm not doing a good job. I'm seeing blank looks.
So all of the capital expenditures are spent out of the reserve. So the reserve, let's say you put $1 million in this year, but you're only spending 800, you'll have 200,000 in that reserve next year. And then you'll put $1 million next year, you'll have 1.2. So, and then plus any other grants. So all what she's indicating that impacts the tax is what is transferred to the reserve this year. But there's not necessarily a direct correlation with that number and what is going to be spent that year. That could be that amount, it could be less, it could be more if you had money in reserve. So, and that's something that the department heads plan over time, and that's why they do that over time. Does that help you?
We have another planned meeting.
Oh, yes.
Okay, can we discuss that at another meeting, please? I'd like to go over these, then we can discuss. It'd be easier to have questions, or I hate this when we get this at the last minute.
Well, you got it last week. It's
Yeah.
just a simplification for the next meeting, so. This has been the same way we've been doing it for the last 10, 12 years, and so I'm just explaining, and you did it last year this way. So this is your second budget year that you've done that. So the bottom line is that she's going to explain, what the transfers are. And then the bottom line is that the staff are going to be providing you with what they want to do this year with capital.
Yeah, and so then, if you reduce work that's in capital, it doesn't necessarily translate to an instant savings in your taxes. You have to go, okay, I'm going to do less work. I'm going to do less work so that if I lower the transfer to reserve, that's where things shift for the taxpayer. So it doesn't shift on just, I'm cutting this road out because, and if it's a road, particularly with public works, a lot of the work there is funded through gas tax and OCIF. And so that's what that grant line is. So it doesn't necessarily have a direct impact back to the taxpayers the same way. When you're looking at that change in capital, you'll see some big numbers in public works. And again, some of that's because of work that wasn't, or those projects that we deferred. So Eugene Road Bridge, the Front Street are carried forward, but they carried funding with them as well. So the grants of $4 million in 2024 is not what our year-over-year sustainable level of grants. That's because of carrying stuff forward with the grants. But yeah, just so you know, we always will kind of zero what the capital work is. And the one that I think is kind of the summary then that is the one that I started to go to is the one with the blue stripes on it. So this is looking at all those transfers to capital reserves. Okay, so this is what 2023 was and what 2024 was, and what the difference between those are. I've given it to you in two different formats. So I've given it to you by the type of reserve, so you can see that who's putting amounts into facility reserves, who's putting amounts into fleet and equipment, and the changes. And then I've given it to you by department at the bottom. So you can see in corporate services, there was just a reallocation of money from the facility reserve to the fleet equipment reserve. That is primarily because community services has assumed this facility in their budget. And so the only thing sort of really with this facility that corporate services is continuing is there was a financing connected to it. Public Works, when we presented on Saturday, we talked about, an additional 475 going into their fleet and infrastructure based on their needs. This is what it looks like, an additional 450 into fleet and just a small increase into infrastructure in order that we can sort of stabilize the fleet amount and then start working on the infrastructure transfers to reserve. Community Services has just had that $10,000 going into fleet and equipment. That amount came out of operating. So again, when we talked last on Saturday, we said there was stuff that was computer related that was in their operating. It's been moved down to reserve. So that's not new dollars. That's just transferring down to reserve. The same with fire. So there's $150,000 of new ask into the transfer into the fleet reserve. The $30,000 on equipment was transferred out of the operating. So you can see at the little bottom summary there that there's $40,000 of the $665 that's new going into reserve. 40,000 of it was in operating already. That's not new money that's being asked for. It's just transferring how it's categorized. And then 625 was a request for new transfers to reserve in order to sort of start to get our levels to sustainable levels and to get our fleet and infrastructure funded. And as Mr. Barbo said, based on an assumption that these reserve transfers are there, the departments are going to talk about how they're going to spend both what's already in reserve and the new reserves and what it looks like going forward for them. And the last page I gave you was just again a little summary of the levies. Now, in a couple of the departments, well, actually, just in the Chateau is the only one. So, it gives you sort of the assumptions that are there as far as what our increase is. The Chateau is a little bit different in that the Chateau has returned surpluses to the municipality for the last couple of years. So, they're forecasting, an increase in their levy. Our 7.82 there looks more than that because I've made an assumption that we're not getting any of that return of surplus from them, that we're going to get just straight levy. And that's what that might look like. If they have a surplus, if they go through budgeting, if they go through that process again, there might be a bit of a win, but they've returned surpluses to us a couple of years. And that's, the same way we are using surpluses to sort of, that 1.2 million, they're doing the same thing on a smaller scale with what levy goes out to the municipalities. And so I've just assumed that they're not doing that this year, that we have just a straight levy increase on that one. But that again is just sort of what's already built into your budget document.
Oh, sorry, I'm Chair. First, thank you, Councilor Gardner.
So for the levies, am I correct by saying there might be an increase of 304,000? So that's a 3% increase on our
Yeah.
taxation?
That's what we've got sort of with our budget right now, yeah.
Perfect, that's what I understood last
Yep.
Saturday, so that's good.
Yep.
For the capital portion, the only thing I don't understand is whatever capital we didn't spend last year, does that like kind of automatically go back to reserve?
Yep.
And then this year, you're just asking, here are the projects that we want to move forward with. So here, but that has no effect on the taxpayer increase for this year.
So
Am I correct by saying that, or am I?
Kind of. So the request, so they have a list of what they want to spend. And let's say it's $3 million, just for an example.
Mhm.
And forget the fact that all of the money carried over. And then there'd be, are they carrying it over and then rebidding and then so let's say it's $3 million that they want to spend. On this, let's say you're looking at 850. All you're going to be for that $3 million is spending the 850 because that's what they're putting into the reserve this year. So that assumes that there's other grants and or other amount in reserve to make up the difference.
Okay.
And so though you're only spending 850, they're going to be doing $3 or $4 million worth of work.
Yeah.
So they give you a plan. And so the first thing that we do is we find out what's in your savings account, what's in your reserve, what's in your dedicated reserve, it's a dedicated savings. Okay, so you don't have a lot. So then whatever you're asking for now, plus whatever is probably the work they're going to do, right? But so let's say if a bid comes in at, you have a $2 million and we've been hurt, but we have been advantaged too. And let's say they get all of their work done, for less than that, then the savings would go back into the reserve for next year's projects or future projects. So it's that much less you don't have to go and get next year. That's why we work off the reserve. And it allows us to carry over automatically unspent funds. Otherwise, you'd be called pay as you go, and you'd be having to fight for it, and your taxes would go up and down. You wouldn't be able to. So we've stabilized that by what we contribute to reserve, and it's a stabilization way of doing it. Common answer?
Yep, yeah, I do. Perfect. Thank you very much. I guess my question was more, does it have an effect on the tax increase for the taxpayers for all the capital budget? And the answer is no. So that's good.
Only if there's an increase. So if they go from 800 to $1 million, then that's an additional point to the taxpayer. So the 640,000 increase, that's about 3-point-something% of the tax increase is going into increasing our infrastructure reserves.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, and just on, my question was just on the.
Fern had a question up there.
Pardon me? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Carter. I didn't see your name.
Thank you. So the reserve, if I'm not mistaken, right now stands at around 5-point-something million.
No, that's the general reserve.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
the operating reserve. These are dedicated capital reserves. So there's a bunch, if you look at your sheet or your operating sheet, there should have been a reserve sheet on that,
Not the dedicated reserve.
not the dedicated ones, just
No.
the,
Just the
okay,
general.
Okay, for example, let's say the bridge on Eugene.
right.
We put it at almost $1 million last
Yeah.
year,
Mhm.
then go through, So it goes back, not in the general reserve, in the reserve, another reserve.
That there, $1 million is parked for the Eugene
Yep.
Bridge, that is not being touched. It's
Okay.
there. So now we retender, and if they make an assumption that it's 1.5, they're going to be asking or going into their plan, they're going to be putting 1.5 instead of the 1, but the $1 million will be there. You know what I'm saying?
So those, I'm just trying to
I don't know.
understand all the reserves there. So there's a reserve for every department?
Where there's a reserve for every department that needs a reserve. So if there's a department that doesn't have capital, let's say planning and building, there's no reserve, right? So there's only reserves really for the people that you see here for the most part. So they're going to be your community services because of facilities and parks. They're going to be public works. There's going to be fire because of vehicles and buildings and stuff. Those, and then general government as well for that.
Okay. And in the, I guess, in the budget, I guess there's specific amount that goes for those reserves every.
That's right.
Okay. Do we have this?
Yes.
here? Right?
That's what this one is.
So, okay, so let's go, just so you know, okay. So if we take Public Works as an example. Right now in Public Works, the fleet and equipment, everything that goes into prior to this year, we used to be putting $650,000 a year into fleet and equipment. This year, they have a lot of needs and there's a lot of things like a sweep or whatever, and they are going to explain that. But for them to be able to stay on board and have us continue to sweep streets, vacuum and doing all kinds of stuff, which they need equipment to do that. Otherwise, services don't get offered. We contract it out. It's way more expensive. So they're asking for 1.1 million this year from 650. So that's their big jump. What we presented to you on Saturday, we made an adjustment this week because they came back to us and saying, if you've got to do that, we absolutely need the machinery and to get to a certain level. Because if we don't, we're pushing back the amortization of these vehicles and they're breaking down and the maintenance of them is costing too much. So their recommendation is let's hit that one right now. We're doing enough on Public Works right now. We'd like to do more, but we're going to work on that because we already heard on Tuesday that we have a major infrastructure deficit. So then this will allow council, future councils in this council to target that amount, which will be roads and sidewalks, right? Now they're only asking for a $25,000 increase in the roads and sidewalks and bridges, but they're asking for $450 in the fleet maintenance to get it to the acceptable amount so they can continue to have the vehicles on the road to provide the service.
Yeah, I got that.
Okay.
Okay, so the 450 really is an ask on the taxpayer of 2.5%, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, so this is gonna be in next year's budget too. We're not gonna ask at 650, it's gonna be,
But then it won't be a tax increase.
right, okay, it's gonna be part of the.
It's going to be part, it's going to be part of what people pay, yeah.
Okay. Okay, I mean, that part is getting clear.
It's hard to get our head around it, but once you understand the concept, it's actually really good budgeting in terms of stable budgeting as opposed to, oh my God, I need a fire truck this year. We don't have a reserve for it and I got to spend 1.1 million. Where do you get it? That's a 10% tax increase. Good luck.
Oh,
You
for
know,
sure.
so that's why we are trying to get these stable funds all over.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions?
Yeah,
Councilor Rivard?
thank you, through Madam Mayor. I guess one thing there that I'm kind of seeing that maybe would have helped is if there was just a section on the page that said the level of reserve at the start of the year. Make it a little more clear. I think that's kind of what would help. It says change in reserve.
So this is
Oh.
the 2023 input
Right.
versus 2024 input, but not the,
So the level of the
Would have
reserve
helped
at the start was 3.5,
Yeah.
right? And now it's going to go to 4.174. So the change is 665, but the level of reserve at the start, you have that here. Yeah. But the original documents, if it wasn't for Councillor Gagne's ask, I don't know that it would be that clear in what we did provide. So, but this is
Yeah.
very clear.
I guess more like by department, something. See like what level.
Yeah, it's, okay.
Yeah.
No, I get it. Yep.
My question was just in regards to Au Chateau. So the levy is separate from the contribution to reserve.
Correct, yeah.
And why is the number for the contribution to the reserve last year weird? Like it's 390, why is it
Yeah.
a round number?
And it's because when we did our budgeting, we budgeted estimated on, and we were estimating the Au Chateau amount at the time, and we were estimating the transfer to reserve. And then when their amount came in over that, it was, so that the overall sort of Au Chateau budget was the same. It just split between where it was because their levy came in higher.
Okay, thank you. And I just have one more question in regards to the difference between operating and capital when we're looking at community services and facilities. So what are the factors in determining whether a project on one of our facilities is like a capital expenditure or whether it runs under operating for like kind of facilities management or maintenance?
So in general, maintenance is that, wear and tear year over year, stuff that happens. In capital, it falls into a couple things. Is sometimes it's just based on dollars. So we have a policy that talks about assets more than $5,000 must go to the balance sheet. Groups of assets more than $25,000 must go to the balance sheet. So we tend to gather those things in capital because they're easy to see and easy to move. Things that extend the life of a building or change the use of a building, those things will end up in capital. Sometimes they will take a look at, and we've done AODA stuff, like accessibility stuff this year. There's some accessibility stuff on the 2024 budget. And then because again, that group of the things, so replacing one door, might not, but when we start replacing all these doors, then it becomes a project that hits capital, so.
Yeah, if it changes the value of the asset, right? Then it's depreciable.
And actually, the other question I'll ask when we get to the community services capital budget. Thank you. Councilor Conlon.
Thank you, Mayor. Just here, let's say like the new roof on the arena in Sturgeon. So that would be part of the capital.
Yeah. If they were just going on a cold day and leaking it and fixing it with tar or whatever, that's operations, obviously, but a total redo.
Okay, and I think you mentioned a certain amount, or is it more
Yeah.
part of the structure?
So it's a little bit of both. So we have a policy that says that a single asset worth more than $5,000 we're going to put on our balance sheet. So if we
Tractor.
buy a tractor, yes. So we buy a tractor, we put it on the balance sheet. Or if we've got a group of assets, which is why IT is we moved to everyone's capital, because we had been running this stuff through operating, and then I've got to go and move it out to the balance sheet, because across the municipality, our pool of IT is more than $25,000. So in that case, again, we just have to say that and this comes from back in 2010 when the government sort of changed the rules of accounting. Well, not the government, but the accounting standards changed so that it was the beginning of starting to force municipalities and public sector entities to actually do some planning, to recognize the fact that you can't suddenly just go, oh my goodness, I need a fire truck tomorrow. And it was that beginning of that planning by saying, okay, if you put it on your balance sheet, if you actually amortize them, if we treat them like assets, and if you've worked in the public sector at all, it's always been that way. It was just or in the private sector, the public sector was just a little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah, the public sector just caught up.
Yeah.
It's called Public Sector Accounting Board, PSAP. So you probably remember that.
Okay, so let's say like, for example, you mentioned the tractor, like you're talking most likely a lawnmower.
Yeah.
So which is part of the fleet, so you're just replacing them.
Yeah.
But I assume it wouldn't be the same like with a loader with Public Works, which is worth 300,000. Then it changes, it goes to capital.
It's absolutely capital. Yep. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So based on that, I know it's confusing, but so for the money that you're putting in that reserve amount, and then we're going to add one other line too, because special projects, this is more the title of, this is what you're getting other than the day-to-day continuing to offer services such as, plowing this morning, this, that, and the other thing. This is what you're getting. So I'll pass it along now to Public Works. And Director of Infrastructure, Ms. Hanning, and the Manager of Public Works are going to present their plan to you.
On 5 of 10, Madam Mayor, would you like me to read through all of the capital first and then answer questions, or would you prefer if I went section by section?
Council section by section, where? Oh, okay, I guess I make the call. I'm fine with you going through it all at once and we can go.
Okay. So to start with, we've got our 2023 deferred projects. This is the Eugene Road, Front Street, which we awarded the other day, and the Eugene Road Bridge. All of those came in high last year, so we are hoping to get some better prices on them this year, and we've already seen that on Front Street. So, and then for restoration projects, we've got King Street from Market to Ethel, which is a continuation of the work that you've seen on John Street, on this end of John Street. So that's King, continuing that work in the spring. So moving on to asphalt, we are looking at.
Excuse me, Ms. Hanning, I have a few questions before you move on.
Well,
We ask questions as we go, please.
Okay, if you'd like to do that. She asked.
We can wait after, but
No.
since we're.
If you want to go section by section, then.
Or I can wait at the end till you go through, but
I think it's better section.
Section by section.
I think if you deal with it on the spot,
Yeah.
if you deal with them, it's
Yeah.
probably a better discussion as opposed to, yeah, so back to the original question.
Okay.
And the reverse
So
answer.
yeah, I think it would be best if we go section by section. Awesome, okay. Did you have a question?
that way when you're done, you're done. Just a question in regards to the deferred projects for 2023. There's Eugene Highway 64 Tacoma, which is 350,000. Then there's the Eugene Bridge. Last year we had approved Eugene Bridge at 310,000. It went up by 40.
900 something.
No, not the bridge. I mean, just Highway 64 Tacoma. So you're estimating it's going to cost more to do that section of the road, I guess?
Based on the prices that, the price increases we saw in 2023, we are budgeting more now.
Okay. And for the Eugene Road Bridge itself, which is bridge repair, we went from 985 to 2 million.
We're basing that on since we did tender Eugene Road Bridge, and that's what the bids were coming in at.
So hopefully we're more competitive and the price.
That's the hope, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's the question I had.
Same question, the Eugene. That's on my travel list. I believe we said last year that they're gonna change it to, they design it for box culvert. Or is it, Monsieur Bignon, maybe you can.
Sure. So yes, we did look at a concrete box. The design team didn't see it the same way, so they designed as per what they recommend, and that's why the cost increase. It's they are going back to design, mind you. I'll let you take it.
Yeah, so we have gone back to design. We're still not going with a box culvert, but we are going with a more simplified bridge design, hoping to lower those costs. But the concrete box culverts were actually coming in because of the span there. And the foundations that were required. It was actually coming in more expensive than a bridge because of the size of the concrete box that will be required.
Really? Because I'm just thinking, that's what they put on Highway 64, which is maybe not the same amount of water that goes through.
It's not just the water, it's the bedrock and the material
I know that.
on the banks there that are,
I went under and I seen it, it's part of bedrock. In the analysis, was there ever mention of just going a little simpler, like a lot of people are talking, ordinary culvert, and adding that culvert where they had the overflow? Like this.
we did, yeah, we looked at all sorts of options, and culverts were one of the options that were looked at, and they were ruled out for issues with the foundations, the bedrock. So that's why we're going with the structure instead.
Who designs this? Is it in-house
So
or?
it's Plan Mac Engineering is who we retained.
Yeah, because I've heard from a lot of people, like the bridge on Saniac Road, which is not from you, but everybody's talking, we got the $1 million or $2 million bridge, and we got the $500 road. So, I don't know. To me, it should be simpler, but I know when you get in the.
So just as a generality, I will comment that a lot of people like to talk, and we're in the pleasant, we have the pleasant experience of having a lot of people that think, that their common sense, is more valuable. The fact of the matter is when we build things, we have to build them and we have to rely on our engineering and all of that. We're legislated to do that as well. We have to test these bridges every 2 years by law, and heaven forbid should we think that we're going to cut a corner based on somebody's advice and then have the bridge collapse or fail, which by the way it has done even with MTO bridges heading a marathon in best design bridges. So we're not really in the position to start figuring it out and shooting from the hip. Unfortunately, municipalities can't do that. Should never have done that, but cannot do that certainly in this day and age.
Thank you. Okay. We can, so we went restoration, continue with asphalt.
Okay,
Is that
so,
correct?
yep, so on asphalt, we have Rosie Road. We have, there's a typo on this one for Ethel. We are not doing Ethel King to Corso for 200,000. That would be fantastic, but no, it's just Ethel from King to Maine. And there is a water sewer component to that work as well. That's not included in this cost. So that would be distribution and collection. Looking at Road from Principal Street east to Gingras. LeBlanc Road from Highway 17 to Drive-In. That one was brushed and ditched this year, and we've actually removed the asphalt on it because it was in extremely bad condition. We didn't want to leave it over the winter. And then we've got Levis and Jenin. This 20,000 here is for design only. We are looking at an asphalt swale and a storm sewer system there, I believe. So the subdrain, yep. So that's just for the design there. For Saberon Road, we've got 87,000. And Salter Street, we're looking at the $6,000 is from Nipissing to Maine, and Parker Street from Railway to First. This is design only because we also need to look at some storm sewer work in that area. And also Sand Hill Road from Cache Bay to Sabron. This is another one where we removed the asphalt already. And there will be some storm sewer work required there, so that's actually the majority of that cost is for the storm sewer, because that's not a very large section of road, but
Question for Sabourin. Are you doing?
Sorry, there's one more item under that.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, if we could just oh no, that's
No, no,
patching,
yeah.
sorry. It just, the page broke in weird place there. Sorry.
Sabourin, are you doing all of Sabourin? Or is it just from area to the highway or?
it is,
So so from where the asphalt currently ends at the hill to where we fixed pulverization, which is, I believe,
yeah, I think it's
driving.
From Highway 64 to
drive-in, yeah.
the drive-in road?
No, it stops at the
No.
hill.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah, from the hill to drive-in road.
okay.
I'm sorry.
The hill to the highway has just been redone. It's already nice and done.
That's the hill.
It's just, there's a little hill when you come from the highway. There's a little.
It's a landmark.
That's not the most technical description.
Councilor Pepin.
Asphalt from Baudry, from Levac to Leclerc. If I'm not mistaken, Levac and Leclerc are just hard surface. I'm just wondering why this little piece of the asphalt.
So Levac Road is hot mix asphalt, so high class bituminous, and Leclerc Road is actually low class, which is surface treated. But the piece in between is actually hot mix asphalt, so high class bituminous.
Okay, so they're not the same stuff.
Nope.
Okay, but it's not, is it just straight? But it's two different.
Not the section of Baudry. Section of Baudry is
Yeah, I know, but
hot mix asphalt.
But Leclerc, you say it's a higher mix?
No, Leclerc is a surface treatment,
Yeah,
and I believe a double surface treatment.
okay,
But it's still considered a low class bituminous.
okay, and Levac is different.
Levac is high class bituminous, which is hot mix asphalt.
Okay, it's.
Yeah,
okay.
two different, absolutely two
Okay,
different
the
type
Levac
asphalts.
asphalt.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's a continuing of Baudry up to Leclerc. Okay, thanks.
That's funny corner.
Yes.
That's what it's called.
Very technical.
That's what it's called, funny corner.
It is.
Funny corner.
Okay, patching.
So patching, we're just continuing in Cache Bay with the fall frost tapers that been going on for a few years now.
Councilor St. Louis.
On that, can you tell me what street we did this year? I know you said there was only 4 or 5 that we're doing per year-ish, and what are we aiming for next year?
To go off memory, I signed off
Which ones
those
were done.
invoices. I can definitely come back to you. I don't remember off.
Please, thanks.
How many are you doing in Cashby this year? 2?
So only 2 this year?
And they were complete excavations because the manholes, the entire structures had lifted. So the sanitary mains were kind of like this inside the hole. So we had to dig down, cut the pipes.
Okay, so we only did 2 this year,
Rebed,
you're saying,
yeah.
okay. And the intent for next year, I think, is what?
So probably 2.
Okay,
But we've found them where there maybe less work to do. So if we're only going down below frost line, it's not as cost prohibitive. So we could potentially get 4 done. And we typically go out and investigate which ones have heaved the worst to tackle those every year.
I have a question on that, please. Oh, sorry, I'm putting my own hand up, but for those types of repairs on the manholes, what's the lifespan once it's done? Like, is this maintenance that has to be done like continually, or once you do these 2 and these 2 and you do another 4, at some point Cache Bay won't have those issues anymore, or?
So that is the hope. So when we are excavating, we're taking out blue clay and we're backfilling with, better materials. So the heaving should subside, but if I had a crystal ball, it is Cache Bay, it's all clay. And some may say that by backfilling with dissimilar materials, you will get differential frost heave. Mind you, they are better materials, so it should alleviate a lot of the problems. Will it last 20 years, 50 years? I can't say that. I'd be guessing.
Thank you, Mr. Renier. Any questions on the patching? Hey, granularity?
Okay, so granular A, we're continuing with what we've been doing the past few years, which is doing granular A on the roads that had been brushed and ditched the previous year. So we're looking at Beaudry Road, Doquise Road, and LaPointe Road. And Doquise Road is a continuation of work that we've been doing for a few years now.
So
Go ahead.
okay, so Doquise Road is the 5 kilometers that we're
Yes.
doing, and how long is the stretch on Beaudry?
Beaudry Road is, it's the entire section of it, yeah.
All of it. So from that funny corner all the way to the highway.
All the way to the highway?
Yeah.
It's granular.
Funny corner
and
to the
then
highway.
From the funny corner south
the,
onto
the highway
the
foot.
hot mix.
Yeah, from the two
Okay.
funny corners.
Thank you. Councilor Barnes.
For the Dokis, is that's phase 2 or phase 3 that we're at?
We're in phase 2 of granular.
It's a 4-phase, right? Because we're doing
Yes.
5, okay, thank you.
We're in the phase 3 of brushing and ditching.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Doing
Currently, but next year is phase 4. No,
Brushing.
brushing and
Yeah,
ditching.
ditching. This is what you have here is phase 3 of the granular. 2?
Phase 2.
I thought we had 5. I thought we did another 5 this year.
Brushing and ditching.
Brushing and ditching.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I wish we were closer.
Yes, we're phase 2 of
Waiting
granular
for
and
the
we're phase
emails.
3 of brushing and ditching.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Pillar. Thank you. I was making notes.
Thank you. Yeah, Chemin Baudry. The ditching was done just a couple months ago, right? Just curious, was it done with a grader? That's what I thought. It was more should be done that way. I think it'd be a lot cheaper, right? So you did, yeah, you did the road, I believe you put some pea gravel on the road?
Crews may have done some soft spots, but we didn't do big gravel throughout. No.
No, not the whole road, but,
In certain,
The MTO might have done a little bit on Beaudry as well too, right? Because it was being used as a detour for their construction in that area. So they were doing some upgrades to
Mhm.
that road this summer as well.
yeah, good, I was glad to see that they use the grader. Thank you.
And sidewalks? So sidewalks, we just have Champlain Street East, the east side of Princeville to the dead end in Verner. And then after that, I've got questions. I've got large diameter culverts. So the culvert on LaBrosse Road, this is just tensioning of the guide rail there. And then we've got a large culvert on Levac Road. This is over the Little Cache Creek. So that's a replacement. Okay. And then moving on to structural repairs. So we've got structure 7 on Savignac Road. And this one is just repairs as per the OSIM reports. So we're just doing some repairs to the barriers at the approaches and attaching some flex beams to the posts. And so just some of the, no major work on that structure. The same for structure 16 on Leclerc Road. Replacing missing post caps on the railings and out of alignment posts. And structure 19 on North-South Road. We are replacing damaged barrier posts, adding load posting signs, and replacing missing load posting signs. So our goal is to keep doing some of the smaller repairs on our structures that are indicated in the OSIM reports so that we don't have anything falling into a great deal of disrepair, and trying to pick a few structures every year to upgrade as the reports indicate.
Oh, Councilor Pilgrim?
Thank you. Leclerc Road, is that the bridge for the Bev River?
Leclerc Road. There's a few structures on Leclerc Road. I believe that one is over the Vieux River, but I would have to confirm that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Bastiel?
I'm going to go back a little bit. That's okay, not very far, but just a question, I guess a historical question. On sidewalks, we have 24,000. Is that lower than what we usually do? And do we do assessments on sidewalks? I know we did the road study and it doesn't have to be that big, but do we have any problem spots aside from these? Because I thought that we used to do about 70K a year.
Yeah, I think we used to set aside 50, but I'll leave it to the experts to discuss what the sidewalk plan is. And
Let's talk about the study. So there was a sidewalk study that was completed. It was before I was probably in 21.
21?
Yeah, probably in 21. So we've been using that study. They did an analysis of all the sidewalks in West Nipissing, and so we've been using that study for our budgeting purposes and trying to figure out what to go ahead with in terms of what historically was done for cost. I don't know, Sean can maybe speak a little bit better to that, but I think it's more just as costs are going up and up, unfortunately, we aren't able to budget for sidewalks what we would like to.
I'm a little confused on this because I had to look up Champlain Street, to be quite honest. And so that's that little side street that runs between the co-op and another. So is this a repair on an existing sidewalk? Okay.
Yes. It's in very poor condition.
Thank you.
I just want to say thanks for that. And it's good that we have that study as well. I wasn't aware that we had it, but I think that coupled with the roads study that we had done too is good because it gives us that roadmap.
yeah,
Use the fund.
and you raise a good point, Councillor Resto, with respect to the sectoral kind of budgeting or cap stuff. But because of our infrastructure deficit, we kind of have to look at, given the money we have, where do you want to spend it? And that's where we've kind of digressed from that. But if we start getting those dollars back to a healthy level, there's more pessimists in the room than optimists on that. But if we can start getting up in future years to a level, then perhaps we can start apportioning a little bit better as before. But we're too far behind now on other things.
Thanks.
Madam Mayor, would you like me to move to
Yes,
brushing
thank
and
you.
ditching?
Thank you.
Okay, so for brushing and ditching, we have Petchen Road from Millerand to Michelle. This is actually one of the only gravel roads that came up as a now need in our road needs study. just to be clear, we haven't incorporated all of the road needs study into the 2024 budget because we got the study just recently and we've been working on this budget for some time. So I am trying to highlight things that we have on here that did come up in our road needs study, but if you look at our budgets and when we do our 5-year plan, you'll see a lot more of that study implemented in our capital plan. So then we also have Dokeese Road, so that would be 3 of 4 for brushing and ditching. We also have an item here for Dokeese Road subgrade repairs. So there's kind of a soft spot on Dokeese Road, and Dokeese has given us a price to do the work there and make a repair to that part of the road. So that's where that is coming from. And then we've got the Dutrisac Road. We've been doing brushing and ditching on Dutrisac Road for the past few years, and this will complete the last section. They'll take it right to Highway 17 is the hope. Then we have brushing and ditching on East Road / Perch Lake Road. This doesn't cover all of East Road, but we're hoping to get a good amount of East Road done this year and then hopefully continue that in 2025 if we're not able to get as far as we would like. Then we've got Leclerc Road from Beaudry to Highway 64. Tomako Road from Denis to Sheboygan, that's ditching only because the brushing was done in-house, I believe. And Sabrin Road, so the west end from the asphalt, and Stewart Road. And that's not all of Stewart Road. That's we're hoping to do about 2 kilometers of Stewart Road.
That's about right.
Yes, on Clare Road. How do you say that? How do you assess where you need ditching? Yeah.
How do we assess? So we look at the entire road. We've got information from our foremen who are looking at it on a regular basis, and that's where we came up with the distances and the culverts that we would need on Leclerc Road. And we've got Leclerc, depending about 3 kilometers of it would require brushing and ditching. And then there would also be culvert replacements, quite a few culvert replacements we're expecting, which is where a lot of this cost is coming from.
Okay, so you're not doing the whole road ditching?
Well, not necessarily, no. We'll do the sections that are needed.
Okay, because, yeah, I spend most of the day for right there and talking to a lot of farmers, and all of them say we don't need any ditching on that road.
You know,
Let me finish. They might not be expert, but they are expert in the field and in the drainage, and they own all the fields on both sides of the road. If somebody would know if you need ditching, I think it would be them. I went to see them for their opinion. I didn't tell them what I was thinking, but they came up with the same opinion I had. The money that used for the ditching and brushing, I don't think is needed at all. The brushing could be done by the municipality machine at any time. There's the culvert that I don't know, the culverts, of course, if you need to change culverts, but that money should be then turned around and used to fix the problem area on the road before we do the resurfacing. Like, just past the bridge, there's a problem area that's rough, it should be dug down 3 feet across. I think, Mr. Lebel, you know what I mean? That's what I'd say. There's a need. Whenever construction, there's a need, there's 2 reasons to do ditching. Is to, if you got flooding issues, or if the road's getting too wide, you gotta bring one side in. Because some roads we see there, it's almost 40 feet wide. That I understand. But just do ditching because we're doing the road? No. I know some roads that have been there 50 years. Never touched the ditch. We don't have a flooding issue. That's my main.
Well, I think, yeah. So ditching isn't just for flooding. If your road base isn't draining properly, then you're going to develop potholes. And if we're not making sure that our ditches are properly cleaned out before we spend money putting new asphalt on roads, then we are really just going to be throwing good money to bad.
We could argue all night.
Well, yeah, and I just want from a public policy or governance perspective to say that roles and responsibilities, one of the people in this room has a PhD in engineering and the other ones do it for a living. I respect the fact that our farming community understand drainage, but a road is a road and our people know roads. And so if I'm getting a little defensive, Councillor Pellerin, it's because I know her qualifications, I know Sean's qualifications, I know the people that work in Verner's qualifications, and this isn't a democracy where we're figuring out by committee how to fix a road. Just saying. If you want to get a second opinion and get another engineering firm to say whether they want to do it, that's fine. But we have professional people in this room who are making recommendations based on what they need. So either we take it off and we don't do it, if that's a council decision, or if council wants to do it, then they do an assessment as to what it costs. Apologize if I have to be blunt, but if it's going to continue this way, Madam Mayor, it's a professional engineer who's basically saying you need to ditch, you need to ensure drainage prior to doing it so you can save the life. And I've been here a long time too, Councillor Pellerin.
Is the plan next year for resurfacing on that section of road?
Yeah, for 2025? Yes.
Councillor Rivera?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to point out from what that Eric St. Pierre, what's his name? Yeah, Eric St. Pierre, a big part of his presentation as well was the proper maintenance of a road and preparing for a good surface on a road. So I do believe like he's similar to the Doe Keys Road, how we're brushing and ditching one phase ahead of the granular the next year. I think it seems like that's kind of what needs to be done. I'm not a road professional there in any case, but yeah, it seems like a good idea based off of what he said and kind of what we're doing with Doe Keys. And if we're resurfacing this next year too, I know it's in rough shape, so it would be nice. But.
Yes.
I do have one question about the subgrade repairs. So those subgrade repairs are going to happen on the same section of road that is being brushed and ditched this year so that these subgrade issues are addressed before the granular surfacing happens next year. So that's in that same phase of road. Is that correct?
Yes.
In that same 5-kilometer stretch? And then just the other question I had is when you're, and this might be operational, but when you go out to tender these different jobs, so when you have the brushing and ditching, do you do them on a project by project or do you group together? So like would East Road and Doe Keys make up like one bid? Because they're, they're geographically close together, or do you bid on a road by road, project by project?
We do it on a road by road basis.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, but yes, in one tender, but road by road. So different roads will be awarded to different contractors depending on.
Okay, so but it's, you don't try to kind of group them together like geographically saying like this tender is for Dokes and East because
No.
they're like neighbors.
No, it'll be one tender for brushing and ditching, and it'll have all of these roads on it.
All of the
All
roads
of the
together.
roads, but the roads would be awarded individually.
Individually, okay.
So that I think answers your question, Madam Mayor.
Yes,
in the sense that if you're going to be bidding on Dokes and East, you're
Yeah.
probably going to have an advantage for an economy of scale geographically for
Okay.
relocation. So I think the way they structure it is for that to happen.
Yeah,
And
we-
So you'll get one company, so if you have a list of 10 roads, you might get one company that bids on 3.
Yes.
And okay, that was my question. I didn't know how those were structured because I was thinking the same thing. If, you know, they're close together, it'd be cheaper to have one company do them than, so thank you. That was my question. Councillor Resto?
Just a question, and if we've already got this info, I apologize, but, or if this is everything is part of a bigger plan. All of these that we're doing brushing and ditching, do all of these have a next phase next year? Or is some of this just maintenance and we have to do it because we have to do resurfacing or?
The goal is that all of these would be done next year, like the following year.
With granular A.
Or asphalt, depending on.
Oh, depending on which one it is. Thank you. I had that same question. Councillor Crochet?
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. I just had a question with regards to Perch Lake Road ditching and drainage. I was advised that there was an issue that was reported to the municipality with respect to drainage on Perch Lake Road. Is that work to address the issue that was brought up, or is it separate from that issue? I think it was reported about a month ago by some residents on Perch Lake Road, so that's why I was asking to see.
So I think you're talking about the big culvert?
Not too sure exactly. I know I recommended that the residents contact the municipality directly, so.
So the one I recall, service request that came in was for the big culvert, but this brushing and ditching contract includes all of addressing brushing and drainage on the entire segment.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Any other questions in this section? Yeah. No, facilities?
Okay, so for facilities, we have some repairs to the Sturgeon Falls garage. We have a lot of rust and erosion issues happening to the panels of the garage, and we have repairs to the structural columns of the Werner garage.
Councillor Conley?
We did the roof, is it the same garage we did the roof last year? Same garage?
The Werner garage? Yep.
As surgeon roof?
Yep, we did the Werner, I believe, last year in this, or sorry, 2022 Werner, 2023 we did the sturgeon roof. But we haven't done the base. The bases are all like it's tin, the walls inside are tin and they're like, and the actual columns.
Okay.
Right, for a foot off the concrete there. I mean, we deal with salt and sand and it's just, yeah, the little columns don't like it.
Okay, thank you.
And on technology, we just have a line item here for computer replacement. So just as many things for computers, not in our offices. Want to make sure we've got that covered.
Okay. Any other questions? If you want to go back to sections that you missed the first time around, please feel free. Councillor Resto?
I have a question, and if it's for another time, I'm happy to have it answered another time, probably directed to our CAO. It's not capital, but when we're talking about Dokes Road and the work that's happening there, we had a meeting with yourself and Mayor and myself and some representatives from Dokes about maintenance and that kind of stuff, and possibly getting into maybe a more favorable situation that doesn't tax our crews so much here. I know it's not capital, it's probably more operations. Is there anything new that's come from that?
Well, other than our manager of Public Works has been working regularly with his counterpart at Dokis, and they do the contracting for that road. So I believe that the complaints would be dropping significantly. And as you saw in that meeting with the mayor, they are sympathetic and appreciative and sympathetic to the size of that road and what we're doing to rectify it over time. So they do realize that those areas that are not rectified are problem areas, problematic. And so that's where Sean and his counterpart at Dokis are working together to A, improve communications, and B, find a more efficient way of getting it done. Is that a fair enough statement, Sean?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's good, yeah, because I thought we had a good meeting.
Yeah. May I follow?
Plowing.
Both grading and plowing.
I was going to ask whether the relationship that you've established for service provision, that's going to continue into the winter with fully plowing or assisting our crews as needed?
No, only assisting when, when we can't get there, because obviously we don't have the budget to contract out Dokis Road, but, at times when our crews are exhausted their hours, or, the timing is also an issue. So, but I mean.
As needed.
As needed, exactly. And so for grading, for example, they assisted, I believe, 3 times, but those 3 times were, saved our, and saved a lot of service requests.
Yeah, well, that's the relationship is continuing to be useful for both of our communities. Thank you. Councilor Lavar?
Thank you, Mayor. Going way back to kind of the start of the list, the King, Ethel from King to Maine. You're mentioning it's similar to John Street, what was designed. So I know that little area is like the only area in that whole section of town that doesn't have a sidewalk around the curve. So there's going to be a sidewalk there?
Yes, there will be a sidewalk.
Okay, 'cause that's kind of a busy area. And then on the talk about sidewalks, I'm not the big fan of sidewalks because I see the cost just to replace a small region, maybe a paved shoulder, but I know at Corsall Road between the highway and Salter is very busy, especially since they put the bus route, the bus depot down on Duchesnac. A lot of buses come down there. And then you have the Allen Court, lots of kids going to OLS or down towards the schools. It's the only crossing in our urban center, I think, that doesn't, like railway crossing, that doesn't have a sidewalk connecting. And then there's a side, I know it would lead to nowhere, but there's a sidewalk not further down on Salter as well. And if that could just be, I don't know about the possibility of turning that into a big loop, just a safer area for people to walk, bike, I don't know, just something that I've always thought, and a lot of people in the area brought that up. Thanks.
So I guess I would answer in general, you won't want to hear this either, is that we're trying to limit new construction with sidewalk and trying to fix the inventory that we have. Now, that's not to say if there's a logical safety issue, as we've done in anywhere else, that we would be looking at it. But certainly our emphasis is trying to catch up. So I think in this instance, I think we'd have to look at it, cost it, and make sure, and then include it on next year's budget for deliberation.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's why I was saying I'm not the biggest fan because of the cost. So maybe if it's a paved shoulder to make it more cost effective. But thank you. Just thought I'd mention it.
Thank you. Councilor Bonnier?
Before we move on to the next item, I just want to understand, last year we had put 68K for streetlights. That's nowhere. And there's also the sand dome with 610K. So where does that money go? And
It's back into the infrastructure reserve, as I indicated. So part of the money that's being used now, it's not being used for that. Okay. So now that's been thrown back into the general pot. And so as you can see, even though they're moving 1.1, or even though they're looking at doing 5.3 or 5.2, there's some reserve money that was in the pool that are being used so that they can carry out all of this, right? So that's where it is. It goes back into reserve, into the public works pool to do other stuff. unless it was still contemplated to be done, it still goes back in the pool, but then it would be targeted. But the fact is we're still working with MTO and, we're still not of the belief to do a dome there.
So unless MTO comes back and says we're cutting the rope with municipality, we're good to keep using their sands and.
Yeah, and if it becomes too costly to do it this way and there's a return the other way, we'll be coming back with options. Staff would come back with the most efficient option.
Okay, thank you.
And the streetlights question, so was there no request for new streetlights this year? Or none that you have been deemed worthy to consider?
I believe we had some streetlight requests earlier in the year, but they were on one of the highways. So those would have fallen under MTO jurisdiction. We had one on 17 at LeBlanc Road. There was a request for that, and
So we do have a policy for that, right? So a resident would make a request. It comes through Public Works and the request gets assessed based on, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand like how, so how those decisions are made for people.
Policy, so the policy, we have to have a signed petition with 50% of the residents.
Okay.
And then the policy is based on vehicle and pedestrian safety.
Okay.
So if there's been an increase in.
Okay. So that really is an operational, so in the Public Works Department, you would look for requirements of the signatures and then, make an assessment
Yeah, and
based
then
on.
assess the sites.
And the two from last year, we had one on the north side of LeBlanc and Highway 17.
Right, so that was one that fell under the MTO.
And but that did get put up, did it not, Councillor St. Louis?
Sorry, which one?
The street light at Highway 17 and LeBlanc Road, is that, I think it's up now, is it
No,
not?
I think
There is one.
It's not there.
Oh, okay, it's not up yet, okay,
No, it was,
it's an MTO.
Monsieur Lemieux put in the request. It was refused by the MTO, but then the MTO came back and said they might be doing
The
a left or right turning lane.
Left
And
turn.
if they do,
Yes.
then at that point, we're gonna request to see if we have
Okay, thank
an
you.
option to put a light there by the MTO.
Just not to push anything, I believe, though, just so you know, that I think Councillor Tessier brought one up for a River Valley area. that was
Yes.
commented on too, right?
Yes.
And the comment on that was it didn't pass a warrant. I think it
That
wasn't
was-
warranted,
The one that I received just this week.
just recently. Was it
Yes.
been only this week? Time
Yeah.
flies.
Yeah, yes, there was one I received just this week, but I haven't had a chance to review that yet, so that's not part of this year's capital. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Cormier?
Just to come back to Leclerc Road, next year, it's a plan to do the resurfacing. Not the-
2025.
Yeah, 2025. Before you do that, or the same year, are you doing the problem areas? Is it in the plans are you just gonna resurface the pulverize and resurface, or fix the problem areas?
Well, some of those problem areas might be due to the drainage that's there now, so if there's a culvert or something at that problem area, those will be addressed this year before we.
So somebody's gonna take a look what the road looks like, so that,
Yes.
because we've done some on Eugene Road way back. They had patches from here to the end of the wall there that would dig down to one lane, go down 3 feet, fill it with big gravel, otherwise we'd end up with the same road in 5 years. Just throwing out there, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nicol?
Before we move on, for brushing and ditching Stewart Road, is it from Highway 64 going in for 2 kilometers, or is it the middle portion?
So Stewart Road would be selective brushing and ditching there's several problem areas. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So it spans more than
I
2
can-
kilometers, but the total distance that you'll be doing is 2 kilometers? But it could be over a 5-kilometer stretch.
Yes. Yes, Stewart Road.
So Stewart Road, the money earmarked will not do Stewart Road in its entirety. Next year, we're planning the Warren Drain spans a lot of Stewart Road, so that that portion will be assessed to the drain. So that will give us more, more drainage for these dollars, but keep in mind that some drainage will be done under the municipal drain. We're going to do the worst sections, but it's not going to complete Stewart Road in its entirety, but we do have certain sections that are really bad. For example, Highway 64 to LeBlanc Road, we close every year. It is muskeg, so we either have to use engineering methods to strengthen the road base, or we keep closing it. We had purchased some GeoGrid, which is a form of, looks like snow fence, but it's actually the width of the road, and it kind of prevents segregation from the aggregates into the muskeg. It's designed for soft road bases. So we're going to attempt that with under this budget, and hopefully in the future we can keep Stewart Road open.
As we inherited it in that state, like
Absolutely.
the road is what it's built on, kind of thing, and
But again, a council decision on whether we want to do that or not.
Councilor Rivard.
Yeah, just mention about that section. Through the years, I've seen it's gotten much better. Like now, even when you drive it, when it's open, used to be when it was open, you could still barely drive it, but now you can get safely by with not a 4x4 truck or anything. So it's getting there anyways, from what I've noticed.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions before we move on to fleet for public works? Thank you.
Thank you.
So then
Who's doing fleet?
the fleet part.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Remyard, nice to have you back.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, councilors, thank you. So fleet, under our new assets, so there's the 2023 grader that is scheduled for delivery in April. So, case in point on the difficulties of acquiring equipment, it's really problematic. And we all know why. So yeah, for 2024, we're looking for a plow truck, which is a replacement for PW 57, which is out of the Verner area. PW 57 is a 2012, and it is nearing its end of life. We would move it as our spare truck. We currently are using PW 46, that's a 2009, and it will not pass the next safety. So light trucks, that's PW, right here. PW 65, which is in the Sturgeon yard. It's just a regular 3/4 ton pickup. And it is a 2008. I have some photos on my phone if you'd like to see them. It's, you wouldn't drive it. Nobody would want to drive it. Again, we have our sweeper that was deferred from last year coming back. It is a shared asset, so split 50-50 costs with our distribution collection department or water and sewer. And we have a loader PW 52, which is out of the Verner yard. It is used obviously to load our trucks in the summer when we replace culverts and to load aggregates, to load when we do shouldering, to load the spoils, and also used to load our trucks for winter sand. And we also use it to maintain the Verner dump. That's the utilization on that.
What's the current year?
It is a 2012, therefore nearing its 12-year life.
Are there any trade-in values on any of the for replacing?
The costs that you're seeing there do not include trade values.
Okay. So whatever we get on the train is a bit of a bonus.
Yes.
Thank you. And if I remember correctly, we had to approve an additional expenditure on the grader because it came in like super not on budget. That's correct, right? So and this is the cost, including the additional money that was approved mid-year.
I think that's correct.
Yes, that's why it's showing here. It committed part of your 2024 fleet to it, so that's why it's showing on the list.
Okay, so that money would have gone back into reserve and then it's gonna go back
Exactly.
out when it's delivered,
Yeah.
right? So-
Yep.
Okay, so that's not new expenditure, that's 581, and that's the only one of these that's kind of already paid for, in theory. Counselor Gagne, thank you.
Thank you. Were you able to secure the 2-ton truck, Monsieur Lumiere?
Not as of yet. I believe they have a delivery or a promised delivery of December 15th-ish.
I have to go back and look, but I know it was a long date now. Yeah.
So before end of years, which is why it's not rolling on this.
And if we don't get it, it's going to be rolled over to this budget? Is that the way it works?
Well, if we don't get it, it is committed, and it was committed entirely with 2023 dollars. Didn't have any future consideration. If we don't get it, we may actually have a discussion on whether we're going to continue with that vendor or not, or what we're going to do. I mean, certainly it has been a really difficult time getting fleet. But on the other hand, though, you know, if they can't deliver by their date, they've actually sort of broken their agreement with us, and then we'll be talking about whether, you know, if it's going to be 3 days later, it's fine. If it's going to be 3 years later, we need to have a different discussion, you know? Yeah.
But the money set aside.
The money's set aside, yes. Yep.
That was my
Yep.
question. Thank you. And for the sweeper, we had budgeted 145 last year, this year. 250. That's because the cost of increase. And that's divided between water and sewer and public, right? Public works.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So it's actually a $500,000 piece of equipment, and this operating budget pays for half of it, and this capital budget pays for half of it, and the water and sewer capital budget will pay 200, and we'll see the same amount. Okay, and for sweeping, and this might be a more difficult question, this year we contracted that service out because we did not have the machines to do it, is that correct?
It's not entirely correct.
Okay,
And
did
so,
you correct
so
me?
we.
Sorry, I'm just trying to
Yeah,
understand.
we do contract out sweeping because in the spring, we don't have the equipment or the manpower to do our entire sweeping contract.
Okay,
So our sweeper is used primarily to sweep all our bridge decks.
okay.
And also maybe an enhanced level of service. We will do certain areas that we get service requests for. We'll go back out and sweep it, you know, to kind of tidy up what, you know, certain specific areas. We use it to install all our signposts. So instead of having to call for a utility locate for an excavation, we have what's called an ALA, which is an alternate locate agreement. And it's simply one phone call, we get the paperwork, we're good to install that sign. So it's just a lot more efficient way of doing it. And also a lot less intrusive, right? Than having to excavate for whatever reason, we can hydro excavate.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a combination.
Like this, and it's
It's a big,
almost like a-
it's basically a big shop vac.
So the purchase of this particular piece of equipment is not necessarily going to save us any money on our contracting costs for that service.
Not having it will definitely increase your costs.
You're talking in positive negative. Okay, thank you. I understand. Thank you. Councillor St. Louis?
So just going through, Madam Mayor, just going through by what you're saying, Mr. Remyard, you're saying that one of the issues, you know, hiring sweeping companies or whatever, we just don't have the manpower to do what they're doing, right? So does that mean that we would need additional manpower to, if we purchase this sweeper, or do we have enough bodies with what we have locally? to run with an additional sweeper?
This is replacing this.
Oh, it's
Um,
replacing it.
Yeah, yeah, we're not,
Okay, okay, I thought it
yeah.
was an additional one.
No, we're,
Okay.
no, we're replacing it.
Councillor Halloran?
Just a question on the grader. I believe that the price that came in at over 600,000 for the new grader.
616.
Okay, so the trade-in, I assume it's another grader?
Yeah,
That you're,
we are trading in PW6, I believe. Do I have my 03? Yeah, PW6 is the one we're trading. It's a 2009.
I remember at that time, I was questioning the six-wheel drive, and I was not aware that we already had a few six-wheel drives in
Our fleet.
in our fleet, yeah. So, the light truck at 85,000. Is that with the snowplow or is it?
This one here currently has a lift gate on it, but we're not going to have a lift gate. But so we put a plow harness on because we all have Boss V plows. So the plows are interchangeable. So all we need to purchase is the plow harness.
All your pickups have a,
Not all, no. I think we only have we have a fuel truck, that doesn't have a plow, right? So when the excavator operator is doing a job, let's say on East Road, then they take the fuel truck, right? Because they have to fuel the machine, obviously, at day's end. So that one doesn't have a plow. We have a lot of trucks. I'm not, but I know that we don't have plows on all of them.
and when you do replace those, are the other trucks going to surplus? So did you advertise them?
Once we secure the new piece of equipment, then we'll declare the others as surplus and we'll get a council resolution to.
And Elise has gone through the process with us on how that's done and through the bid sites, and it's pretty kind of standard procedure and how it's all run at that point.
Thank you.
Councillor Rivard?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's nothing, I'm not too sure if it has anything really to do with the budget there. Katie may be getting annoyed that I keep bringing this up because I brought it up at the environmental services meeting too, but listening to Mr. Remillard mention PW 57, PW 46, I know some towns are naming their snowplows, so I don't know if that would need to be included in budget for some sort of advertising, but I've always thought that we should follow suit with something like that. Maybe the employees would like, I got a few names, maybe they'd like driving a Buzz Ice Clear or Snow Beagle on Kenobi or something, so I think that would be a good idea.
I have one. Orville
We'll
Road
keep
on
it.
Blocker. I do think that would be fun, and I think that would be an awesome exercise for all our fun guys, guys and gals in the Public Works Department. And yeah, thank you, Councillor Rivard, for
I'll keep trying.
bringing the fun to Public Works. Thank you. Okay. Do you want to break that? I don't know how everybody is feeling, if we would like to do a break now and then come back. The other ones, Public Works is always one of our largest pieces because it's, guys like to spend a lot of money and we have a lot of roads and a lot of infrastructure. So I take the seconder for a 10-minute recess. Councillor Gagné, Councillor Restoule.
It is moved by Councillor Gagné and seconded by Councillor Restoule at approximately 7:33 p.m. A motion was tabled for a 10-minute recess.
Oh, all in favor? Carried.
So Jerome, I'm guessing it was not one of the big ones.
So, what's your, questions ready?
back. Thank you for. Thank you for indulging us in a quick break there. We're moving on to page 8 of 10 on tonight's package and moving to community services. Mr. Barbeau, would you like to open or shall I
Nope, all good.
pass it straight to Mr. Mayor?
Madam Mayor, my list is not as exhaustive as Public Works, so it shouldn't take much time. All right. So with facilities, as council's aware, we did tender out for our Cashby Outdoor Rink last year, and it came in quite high, and we felt it was an unreasonable cost. So we council agreed to defer this project to 2024. We had budgeted 137,000 last year. We've revised our numbers and we've increased the new construction for the outdoor rink at 205,000. As part of the 2024 recommended projects, the Vernon Municipal Building structural repairs and maintenance, I'll go into a bit more detail about that project. So a number of years back, we had structural issues at that building, the old OMAFRA office or the old school gymnasium that we had to demolish. And at that time, we had a full engineering or structural review done of that building. Currently, the building houses OMAFRA, the Ontario Ministry of Ag, Food and Rural Affairs. It houses Dr. Bourgault, our public library. We have a fitness center in that facility. We have a small, medium-sized boardroom that's available for use for our community groups. And we also have l'UCFO, L'Union Culturelle, that uses one room in that building. Our consultant is recommending that we go ahead and spend some money on that building because it's warranted next year. That includes the canopy at the main entrance. We're under a load watch right now. We've got to make sure that there's not too much weight on that canopy, so we need to have that removed in 2024. We also need to address some of our issues with the brick walls throughout the entire building. Certain sections, it's coming undone. We have to address those. So that would be the first phase. So I guess the future phases of that building would be a bigger council discussion. There's more work to be done at that building. It's an old building. And so what we're proposing is that we move forward with these safety items this year, and throughout the course of 2024, we'll come back with a more extensive list of required improvements and repairs and maintenance at that building with some more accurate estimates for costing, and then council could have that discussion about how we move forward with what's required at that facility. The second project earmarked for 2024 is the Sturgeon Falls entrance AODA and facade repair. The entrance is the main entrance at the front of the building, which is O'Hara Street. The doors were not compliant AODA wise, and we need to address that. We need to address the grading and the walkway entering the building. We need to assess the doors. And we would also, as we're doing that construction, address the facade and have new facade improvements put on the front of that building. We also are looking at 2025 is the year where we're required to be in compliance with AODA. We have a lot more work to be done. We have had the building condition assessments done recently. And there's a list of AODA requirements at our facilities. We know what we need to move forward with in the coming years, and we need to start working on conceptual design and drawing so that in 2025, we'll come back with drawings and designs for specific projects that we'll need to move forward in order to be compliant. And the other is the recent request that we've received from the West Nipissing Pickleball Club to resurface part of the tennis court here in Sturgeon Falls. to accommodate 4 pickleball courts. They had provided, I believe, an estimate of 44,000. We feel that that could be somewhat low. And we feel that we look at resurfacing not only the portion that they're looking at for the pickleball courts, but I think it's impossible to just surface half of the tennis court or that existing court. We'd have to look at potentially resurfacing the entire area that includes the other tennis courts. So what we're recommending, if it's council's wish, to put money into the pickleball court, that we could put the 50,000 in that in the 2024 capital budget, but allow us to basically over the next couple of months to look at what the cost would be to resurface the entire area, including the tennis court, and look at other potential work that could be required, such as improvement in fencing and whatnot. And then we could come back with options and further costing. But the initial cost, if council wishes to just resurface the 1 tennis court, converted into 4 pickleball courts, the bare minimum would be around 50,000 and could potentially be a bit higher. But we because the request came in so late, we would need a bit of time to be able to do some more investigative work on that. So I don't know, Madam Mayor, if there are any questions. It's a shorter list, but these projects we feel are projects that we need to proceed with in 2024. And if there are any questions, and then we can move on to the fleet portion of the budget.
Councilor Rivard?
Mayor, on that last part with the pickleball, I do agree that we should probably look at the options of doing everything at once since we're there. And I was asking my dad how old those tennis courts were, and he couldn't really tell me, but he thinks it must be pretty old, right? Like 3-4 decades at least. So and if you think of adding a bit more extra money, then we revitalize that whole aspect of our community and we give that, it's kind of an added service as well, brand new tennis courts that with pickleball courts, I think it would be a benefit towards the whole municipality. Would you have an age, John?
I don't. We can see, but it's, yeah.
So when you think of the money that was initially put in, then if we put some more money in, we'll be good for another probably 50 years or so.
So there's 4 regulation size tennis court surfaces. Like that's the size of it. Is it 4?
There's three, but they want to.
There's 3 tennis courts. We're going to take 1, turn it into permanent.
4 pickleball courts.
4 pickleball courts. I know was mentioned as well, and I don't know if it could be looked at in costing or something we could discuss as council, but I've often heard people requesting basketball surfaces, and I think, you know, the tennis courts have been very sparsely used over the last years, so I don't know if there's a possibility of looking, like if it's the same size. I don't know enough about that thing that it could kind of be multi-use, where there could be basketball courts or something there too. So I don't know what the cost of those things are, but it might be something to kind of present to council as an option. You know, when you do the costing. Councillor Restal, you have a question as well?
Yeah, I was going to make it funny, but I don't think I will. Just a question about the facilities. I don't think this is capital, maybe it's more just operational, but just had some comments this weekend about the complex beside the arena and just the stairs and the condition of some of I know it's concrete stairs, and I guess some of it is chipping or breaking off, and there was just some concerns about potential safety issues, but I don't think that's a capital. I think that's probably more maintenance.
Are you referring to the main stairs heading to the Marcel Noël Hall? Okay, yeah. So through our building condition assessment, that's listed in there. As far as some projects that we want to get into design and conceptual drawings is a major project for the West Nipissing Recreation Center, and I believe it will address the outside envelope. But in the meantime, I'll make sure that we follow up on the conditions, the condition of our stairs leading to, and if there's patchwork that needs to be done, we'll look into that for sure. But I think there's more of an overall larger project that we'll need to address in the very near future for the complex, including the outside perimeter and also inside the change rooms, the accessibility to that facility. So there's more to come, but for sure, point well taken. We'll make sure that if there are any safety concerns with the stairs, we'll address those.
What is the age of that facility, if you don't mind?
The pool dates about 26 years. The arena went, yeah. The arena went through a significant fire and then was basically rebuilt.
1995.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Councilor Barlow? Oh, sorry, I'll get to you next time.
Yeah, just to follow up with Councilor Restoll, yeah, we did visit the complex with the handicap committee, and yeah, a few of them mentioned that there was even some bricks missing at the entrance. So I think it is a big liability. Another question was the burner. Yeah, doesn't show here, but the burner arena, the two little canopies, that in the works.
Yeah, that is. Last I had heard, and I did get an update today, I hadn't had a chance to dive into it, but they were looking at obviously trying to pour the pads prior to winter hitting. I'm not sure if that's going to happen now. And they had the material on order and whatnot, but I can follow up and come back to council in December with a more accurate update.
The one side would be, I guess, not too bad because you got the snow stoppers at the top, but on the other side, it is a big liability.
Yeah, and our staff are monitoring it daily, and as soon as we see ice, we need to address it to ensure public safety.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor St. Louis?
Thank you, through Madam Mayor. So going back to the Cache Bay outdoor rink, I know we had discussed the possibility of looking into keeping the double rink. So I just want to make sure that's still an option whenever we do talk to the contractors, right? I mean, obviously, whatever's cheaper, whatever's better is the way to go. Now, if I'm not mistaken, also in conversation with you with the Sturgeon Falls outdoor rink, the surface is not paved or anything. It's crushed stone of some sort, right? And that'll be the same intent in Cache Bay.
Correct.
So right now in the Cache Bay outdoor rink, going back to what we were talking about a while ago, there are two basketball courts, or one basketball court, two basketball nets. Is there something that we can look into to ensure maybe adding the same thing? Obviously, you can't play basketball on crushed stone, but maybe look at providing a half-court paved area near, or maybe near the, not change room, but the little cabana there, whatever we call it, so that the kids don't lose that opportunity. I can just anticipate, imagine the cost of a full court, but even if it's just a quarter of a court where you have the key and the kids can play and have that access and go from there.
If it's council's wish, we can include that. So just to answer, there's a couple questions there. One is that we just can't talk to a contractor once we have tendered out to see what the cost savings would be for having two smaller rinks or one larger rink. So if it's council's wish for us to look at costing the two separate options, we'd have to do that before we go to tender. So we'd have to actually design to replace like for like, which is two smaller rinks, and then have a design for a larger rink, just having one surface. So if it's council's wish, we can certainly do that. Then we have options. We have costing for both options. And then if it fits within our budget, we can move forward with either, or if it's over budget, we'd have to come back to council and discuss that. So that's one thing. The second thing is having a pad. So we'd have to, again, include that as part of our design or project to have a certain section of that area next to the change room to be designed for asphalt, so that we can put, and then cost out actually putting posts and basketball nets. If it's council's wish, we can do that. Obviously, we didn't factor that into the $205,000 because it's, or the other option is look at maybe the back of the current community center. There's a small area that is paved back there. We can look at the condition of the pavement and maybe put a couple basketball nets up against the building if that could work. That's an option we could look that could potentially be more cost effective. And it's a good public area with the playground. It would be another option for young families or children to use that facility.
And that's something that we had discussed with the people that I had talked to. Also, it saves the kids from crossing that railroad track, right? Yes, there ain't too many trains going by like when we were kids in Cache Bay, but at least, you know, it's there. And that was my preferred option, but it's definitely something if we could look at. Thank you.
Do you want direction from council on that?
I would appreciate
now,
that.
so that you can start that. So would council be in favor of Mr. Poulet designing the tender to have options for both the double smaller rink as is now, as well as a similar design to what we've done in other communities? Just a quick show of hands. I don't mind having the options, like pricing out two different options for the Cache Bay rink.
What's the timeline then? How does that?
Well, they haven't put the tender out yet, so I don't think that's,
No, it wouldn't be a big issue.
okay. And as far as is there a basketball court there now? Is that what you're
So the
saying?
basketball court was inside the
Rink?
rinks, right?
So the rink is hard surface
The
right
rink right
now?
now is hard surface, but I do understand that going the other route is obviously better because your ice will last longer, right? So, I mean, you know what, as for the basketball court, I mean, if it's something that I can bring up at a later time, because I do believe that the option behind the school, that there is paved parking there right now. I think there definitely need to be resurfacing of some sort, which would definitely be more cost efficient, and a couple backboards on the wall and paint some lines, and away we go. So I'm not too worried about that.
If
right
you'd
now.
like to bring that back to, my opinion is that that's actually a better location for it as far as having the different, the splash pad and the playground and everything all together at once in a central location that's actually attached to our community center there. I think it creates a recreational hub. So if you would like to bring that back at another council meeting, and, we can go from there. Councillor Tessier?
Yes, Mayor Rochelle. Is this the place that I brought up the storage for the rink in River Valley? Storage for their equipment?
If it's a capital issue, certainly, but maybe if you bring it up, Mr. Poulenc could respond.
Yeah. Yes.
So it is identified as part of our, and I think we'll be coming to council soon with the 5-year plan. It's going to be addressed. We know that there's work. It's part of we did a building condition assessment that's listed in there. If it's going to be 25 or 26, I'm not 100% sure, but it's going to be proposed sooner than later. It just did not make our list for 2024. Yeah.
Councillor Gagne?
I have a question, not in regards to budget, but in regards to the request for the pickleball. Is there a process or a policy in regards to user group that are asking to introduce the new sport? Because we're bringing in pickleball here in Sturgeon, but are we going to get the request from Monetville, and then we're going to get the request in River Valley, and then maybe, I don't know, another sport's going to come in, and they're going to say, we want to play cricket in Sturgeon Falls, so we want a cricket field for people to play cricket. So how does it work? And do we kind of ask the user group to say, you fundraise 10% and we'll do something with the rest? Or is there a process or something? I don't feel comfortable saying we're going to fund 100%. And I know in the past we've had requests for squash courts at the complex and like, how does it work? Do we have something or?
So there's a lot of questions there, and I see you looking at me for pickleball. I have no experience and cannot comment on cricket. I just have to tell you that. I think I understand the game, but I don't really. With respect to your answer, though, we don't have a set policy in that way, so we take it as a one-up. So you got a delegation that came here, gave some information, and then obviously it's a budgetary discussion, so we bring it up as an option. Council can choose to agree with it or disagree with it, or say, no, we'll fund half if we'll match funds. That's a council thing. And then if council wishes to find a policy with respect to how to handle that, but right now they are addressed kind of as a one-up, Councillor Gagne, so I do agree with you on that. With respect to, pickleball in other areas, I was thinking cash pay as well. Given the aging population of cash pay is probably better than basketball, but anyway, I'm just saying. But no, we don't have a policy on that, but, I think that it'd be really interesting for council, not at budget time, to come up with a policy, but also talk about maybe a vision with the recreation committee on multi-sport or what will be coming down the pike with respect to different types of sports and that we may want to address a multi-use facility or convert one of our facilities to multi-use as well.
I have a follow-up question.
Yes.
The reason I'm asking questions, I know we did the splash pad in Cache Bay.
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, that was full 100% funded by the Cache Bay community.
It was matching.
Oh, it was matched
Yes.
with council?
Cache Bay matched, Werner matched with existing funds they had from the rodeo days.
Okay,
There was matching for the St. Joseph School, actually, their thing. So they raised and we matched. I don't know of others, but I think that we handled CCL, a lot of the CCL stuff that way too. So there was matching funds for those splash pads.
okay.
And the same with the field rink. I mean, it wasn't matched exactly, but we had provincial funding and the local volunteers did a great job of raising money, and it's always, a little easier for council to come to those agreements when we see that the user groups are committed. Nothing says commitment like cash.
We have informally, though, as the mayor was indicating, going out and doing our spiels, but we've been saying the same thing as to when you have an interest in human people, like wanting to get excited is one part of it, but when they also take the time to raise funds like they had even for signs and field through your counselor, then it really makes it easy for us to get on board. And so council may wish to have some sort of that preference will be given to those who have made an attempt to raise a blah, blah, blah would be an interesting discussion that we can have down the line.
Councillor St. Louis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Unfortunately, I wasn't here when there was the discussion about the pickleball or the presentation. And I'm listening to the conversation and something came to mind. Did the pickleball group ever consider approaching the curling club? The reason I say that is the curling club has been trying to raise funds for years and years to have their surface paved, but right now it's only a sand. So I'm thinking, obviously, the pickleball group doesn't play pickleball outside in the winter, but that might be an option in the summer when there is no ice at the curling club to create an additional spot for pickleball. And I know that the curling club had other ideas and other events, whether it's weddings, whether it's archery, I believe it was, and stuff like that. So I'm just thinking that might be a good coalition of two groups getting together, maybe raising funds, or if we as a council decide to provide some financial support, that we were hitting two clubs that will benefit as opposed to just one.
Yeah, wedding and archery is a neat. Interesting combination. Yeah, anyway, but we have talked about it, but we've never formally, because they're a group on their own. And I believe we had a chat, I don't know if it was with the mayor or whatever, about that venue being a venue that would be in need of some support as well in the summertime. I can tell you in Sudbury, the pickleball people that start playing in the summertime, they actually go to the Sudbury Curling Club. And so pickleball is, there's a big pickleball thing at the curling club in Sudbury.
And I know that it would definitely assist also the curling club in the sense that their curling would be able to start earlier.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sean.
I think what they want is, I think what they want is an outdoor facility first to start looking at that. You know, but again, you know, if they had something indoors at the curling club, perhaps we can talk to them about that. Yeah.
But they have been playing indoors in our arena the last 2 weeks.
In the summer.
Yeah, in the summer. But I think they are looking for an outdoor venue.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were done? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, just after hearing Councillor Goy say that people usually drum up some money to start. Do we, for the outdoor pickleball, are we going to ask something like that, or?
It's up to council. I know, you're looking at me, but I don't make the decisions around here. I just tell people what you guys think. So, you know, I mean, when I actually met with the lady who did the presentation from the pickleball group, and I did express that that same kind of thought, you know, so it'd be, you know, be a lot easier to get behind these types of projects. You know, if there's a contribution from the user group. So and that's entirely a decision of council. So, you know, we can approve a $50,000 budget, but say, you know, the money will only be available when the user group, you know, comes up with 10,000 or, you know, whatever we decide that that number is, that is entirely just council on how we want to approach that. Because they have the projects in the community, many of the projects in the community have come with some kind of contribution from the user groups involved. And I don't think that that's unreasonable. It is a project, specifically with this project. I mean, when you're resurfacing and painting specific lines for a specific sport, you are benefiting one user group of 100 people, or, you know, right now it's 100, maybe in 2 years, it'll be 150. So, you know, is it unreasonable? It's not necessarily a project that benefits, you know, the 6,000 people within the community or whatever. So, you know, that's entirely, you know, a choice of council as to how we would want to approach that. It is an aging piece of our recreation infrastructure that probably could use some work one way or the other if we want to keep it viable and not have it, you know, go to dust. But you know, at this point, you know, we're kind of going through the presentation and giving the information. I see our next session at budget, you know, really drilling down. So if we want to get to a lower number, you know, start to make some hard decisions about whether or not we want something included or considered for this year. Or whether we want to take that off the table, or whether we want to fund it at a lower level. So, you know, if we said, well, you know, we'll do the pickleball, but our contribution will be limited to $30,000, and you know, let the people figure out the rest. That's entirely discussions that we can have when we try to drill down those numbers.
When you're trying to reduce the numbers, Madam Mayor, just a reminder that these are funded out of reserve, and this is a choice. So if council chooses not to do this, then staff will be bringing other options on this, unless you choose to start lowering the infrastructure, the contribution to reserve is the way you reduce the taxes. And that wouldn't be my recommendation, since we have an infrastructure deficit. So if you take away pickleball, I'll say right
like
now,
to reassign it to something.
the rough estimates for the burner building are about 1.8 million.
Well, I was going to get to questions about,
you know,
that
so
structure now.
just to let you know, so we're going to have to kind of, But certainly the choices within these groups are yours.
Can I have an opportunity to speak as well?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll go to you next, because I have a whole bunch of questions written down for all of these projects. So, the Cache Bay outdoor rink. Well, first of all, I wanted to say there was a very interesting news article a couple of weeks ago about the infrastructure, that like huge increases in, you know, infrastructure costs, and not necessarily the public works side, but these buildings and these community projects across Ontario, and how it's having such a huge effect on municipalities. So what we saw with the Cache Bay rink last year, this is not, we're not an anomaly. This is something that's being experienced with councils across Ontario, and it's makes it really difficult when you have a similar project done in 2018 was about $80,000 for River Valley and Living each. And now, you know, we're not 5 years later, and we're 2.5 times the price that was the paid at the time for the same project. And so, you know, we've got a lot to do. We've got a lot of people to serve and a lot of different interests, and it makes it really tough. I do hope that when the tender goes out for this project, that it comes in at what you've got budgeted here, and not the 310, was it? 310,000 that came in this year, which I think is absolutely ridiculous for some crushed gravel and some boards, right? Like, this isn't, you know, we're not building the Eiffel Tower. The Vernon Municipal Building, you know, you've got 315 this year, but some pretty serious long-term concerns about that building. You have, I won't hold you to it, but I mean, do we have any idea what we're going to be in for to get it from where it is now to what we consider acceptable condition for that building?
If we were to address all of the recommendations over the next 3-4 years, we're looking at close to 2 million.
So it's at 1.8.
Because right now, the pressing need is that canopy, the brick exterior. Then we're into roofs, we're into HVAC, we're into washroom upgrades, we're into windows. So the list is extensive. It is an old building. But currently we feel that we at least need, because we can't, you know, council, I don't think is, and I don't think we're prepared to bring all of the options right now to council. I think there's still some work that needs to be done, but obviously, like I ran through the list of who's occupying that building right now, and I think we still need to move ahead with some investment to keep the building safe and operable. And this is what we're proposing for this year. And like I did mention, we're going to have to come back at some point in 2024 and have that presentation to council, so that council's aware of what needs to be done in the coming years, and decisions are going to have to be made.
We have no other facilities in Vernon outside of the arena that could.
Nope.
Councillor St. Louis.
Sorry, and you mentioned all those individuals that are in there right now. Do these individuals pay rent to the municipality?
The Todd Bourgault does not. It's a long-standing, I think that all came about years and years ago through a Ministry of Health initiative where we're trying to get doctors in rural areas. So she is not paying rent, no. The library obviously does not pay rent. You see a full pay a nominal rent, and we are getting about 18,000 a year from OMAFRA.
Thank you.
And we have the fitness center that we invested a little over 50,000 in, and we have, to be quite blunt, a very small amount of members that pay membership fees.
It's just, it's a whole lot of money to invest short term if the building's not viable long term. So,
Well, I think that the investment in the asset would hold its value with respect to what's necessary, depending on what options council does with the building anyway. And so you know, and that's a much bigger thing that will create a panic if we start having a conversation and it is a council decision. But what is being recommended here is what staff believe is absolutely minimally necessary to keep her safe and to keep her, you know.
And to prevent further issues.
This is the minimum that we can invest to extend the lifespan. That's. Okay, Sturgeon Falls Arena entrance and AODA, sod repairs. I did receive an email a couple of weeks ago in regards to the bleachers in the foyer that I guess are meant for, you know, people who don't want to get to the bleachers in the side. Is that part of what's going to be addressed? Because I think the concerns were that there's no railings, it's a bit of a hazard, blah, blah, blah. You know, like those types of issues, and I didn't know whether they were identified in the AODA report.
No, as far as the bleachers in the main lobby?
Yeah, that.
No. I can ask our consultant to see if that was highlighted as far as a safety concern, having no railing on the sides of those. I don't know if they're high enough to consider that. I assume at the time when they were installed, they were done as per code, but obviously code changes. We can look at that, but I don't see those bleachers as being AODA. The main entrance doorway is, but the bleachers themselves.
Do we have accessible seating arrangements? So is it just kind of wheelchairs right in front of the glass, or like, is that part of the plan, like how to accommodate accessibility for?
In the future, we will need to address that aspect. We'll also need to address the lobby washrooms as well, because they're not compliant. No. So that's going to be part of the bigger 2025 scope of work that we'll need to, and we're looking at the building as an entire entity. So Marcel Noel Hall entrance, we're looking at the inside of the lobby area, the arena, and there's also AOD work and improvements that will need to occur on the pool entrance side. And the change rooms for the pool and fitness center as well. So there's a lot more coming. And this year we wanted to address at least the doors to the arena lobby entrance and and I'm not using the proper terminology, but as you get in close to the doors, it's sloped too steep for wheelchairs and whatnot. So we want to address that as well, and the facade of the building while we're at it.
Those are my questions. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Varga. Councillor Calderon.
Yes, just wondering, do we get grants for all these upgrades for handicap?
We currently there, to my knowledge, we have looked on the AODA front. There aren't any grants per se. We did apply for Trillium in 2023 to have AODA and the entire entrance area for the pool, and we did not qualify. We didn't get approved for funding. Trillium has another round coming up in 2024. There's also the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund that have infrastructure grants. So we will look at that, but when we apply for a grant of that, we want to make sure that it's a project of magnitude so we can leverage as much money as we want or as we can. So when they say up to a maximum of $1 million per project, we want to make sure that we've got a $1.something million project to get the most out of it. And that's why we're going to look at the entire facility as one big entity, so that when we go for a grant, we will maximize our ability to get government funds.
Just curious on something like that. Can you apply for a grant, let's say, as let's say needs inverter and cash bay and the Sturgeon, and put this all in one because of the government giving you a deadline to do all this? I'm just curious.
It has to package in some sort of a theme. So yes, geographically, if it was a common theme, you can kind of do that. So yeah, if there's a certain cluster, that I think that's what Mr. Poulenc is trying to say too. But with respect to this building, he's trying to cluster at least that whole building and chalk it up. But if there's some parts of the other buildings, then certainly we can look at that too.
And I know if we simply go in for AODA only, they won't consider it. but we have to come in with an angle that it's AODA compliant. And also it will enhance the usage of our facilities and allow more individuals or residents or people to use those facilities. That's key, and that's where we have most success in gaining funding. And we're looking at all that. So when we get into the bigger projects, once we've got the design, the scope, and we're tackling some of our building condition assessment issues, we're going to make sure to leverage as much funding as we can.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I see no more questions at this time, so if you want to continue with your.
So we've got three items. One, the last one being an IT replacement cost. I think you saw that in Public Works as well. That's obviously self-explanatory. The two other is ice resurfacer. As we all know, we call those Zambonis here. We replaced the Sturgeon Zamboni last year, and now it's a 2009 model in Burner. We had issues with it last winter. Knock on wood, we've done some work that it's going to keep us afloat this year, but it is due for replacement at a cost of $120,000. The light vehicle, so as council's aware, we're looking at divisions now. So the light vehicle is not necessarily earmarked to community service per se, more of a vehicle that our building officials will be utilizing. So it's a light SUV or a light car or a small compact car to assist our building inspectors to get out and about, something similar to what we've done with bylaw. It's going to be part of our fleet, and we've done the analysis compared to the mileage we pay. Obviously, both of our building inspectors put on a lot of miles, and we're looking at getting one small vehicle, having it available for them to use. So that light vehicle is under community services, but it's going to be serving our building inspectors.
Questions?
And just to add, Madam Mayor, the cost of it is obviously, we're going to be looking at getting an efficient vehicle that will last us. It's not necessarily we're going to look at a new vehicle. We just want some budget to get a sound vehicle that'll last us for years to come.
Questions on that section? Thank you very much for the work you put into the budget here. The presentation, appreciate it. With that, we will move on to corporate services.
Actually, I think that I might go through the special projects that were part of his operating.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So the dollars that are in the operating, but they're just the project. Hold on.
So again, being conscious of time, provided everyone with the list of 2024 special projects for both community services and economic development. Starting at the top, community services, of the $125,000 in special projects, 50 would be earmarked for community initiatives, events, and programming. That's the year-to-year events programs that we offer our residents. Also included in this as a one-time cost under special projects would be a contribution of $15,000 to the River Valley Golden Age Club as per their request to council. And I say a one-time is for subsequent years, we'd be looking at including such expenses as part of our operating, similar to what we do with CCL, for example, living. The second line is municipal committees. As council is obviously aware, we have a culture and recreation advisory committee, a youth advisory committee, and accessibility advisory committee. And these committees need some available funding or finances to be able to implement some of the key projects or goals and to attain their goals and objectives throughout the year. So those dollars would be earmarked in support of these committees to be able to implement their priorities and their goals. Community beautification and enhancement is at $20,000. That is, again, to support our local volunteers and our community groups to keep our municipality with some flowers and some mulch and topsoil and benches and garbage cans and flower pots and you name it. We've spent a lot of dollars over the last couple of years, especially with garbage cans on Principal, in our parks and our playgrounds at the Sturgeon Falls Beach downtown. We've pared that down now. It's about maintaining what we have and not just continuously adding and adding and adding. The final request is, again, sitting in front of council, is Cano. $25,000 financial or cash contribution to assist them in their programming. In the December council meeting, we will be bringing forth what council requested, and we will be requesting their financial statements, their projections, and a more clear picture of where this funding would be used for. So once we present all of this information to council, council will be better equipped to make a decision on that funding request. Are there any questions?
Councillor Pellerin?
Oui, juste, ça, c'est-tu juste un one-time deal?
Le request de Cano?
The special projects?
No, we've traditionally budgeted 125 year to year, and depending on some of the requests we get from community groups and some of the different events or initiatives we want to implement, is we always prepare this type of list for council year to year, but we try to stay within the 125,000 budget line.
Okay, c'est comme le community beautification, ça, ce serait le budget
Pour toute la communauté.
pour toute la nouvelle.
Ouais.
OK.
Ouais.
Il n'y a pas un autre.
Non, non,
budget,
non.
là, pas, ouais.
Non.
OK.
Ouais, ça sera toute la communauté.
Anybody else? Councillor Gonyi?
Yeah, just, I might have missed something for municipal committees, priority and project and initiative. That $30,000, that include the 15,000 for River Valley Golden Age Club?
No, Councillor, the 15,000 would be part of the community initiatives, the line just ahead of it.
Okay, perfect. And I would like to propose for community initiatives like the Golden Age, because I know they do fundraise money. I don't think we should be on the hook to 100% of all the expenses. So could we also bring back that discussion in regards to the user group for the pickleball and also for any other community? Because last thing I want is that we pay the whole tab and we know they're fundraising money and they want to do things within their club, but I think it's only fair that we work on both sides and not 100% just the taxpayers. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just making a note here. Other questions? I just have one question in regards to the $30,000 for municipal committees. I mean, obviously, the thought is $10,000 each, but is that going to be a kind of a flex fund? So, you know, if we, you know, depending on who comes up with what and what they need, we'll have the ability to and the contribution for the MOU for the Icelandic model, where is that money coming from? Is that included in your budget here?
I didn't include it there.
I actually assumed it was part of the 10,000 that was in the council
Yeah,
budget.
so you have your 10,000 in council,
Okay,
apply it there.
okay. Wherever. Okay, I just didn't know whether the intention was for it to come out of that
It is there.
$30,000 I didn't know whether you wanted to tie it to your community or whatever, so thank you. And then on to your economic development initiatives, Mr. Plet?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Under economic development, there's 172,000 in the special projects line. Broken down is 112,000, and without taking too much time, because I know we're getting late, the BDO zone designation was a grant that we applied through for the Clean Fuels Fund that's dating back 2+ years. And we've just recently received a conditional approval. So the project is 110,000, and we've added the non-allocated GST amount. And so the grant portion is 55,000, and council, I think, at the beginning of 2023 as a budgetary item, council had discussed this, and we had recommended, because we had not heard about our grant that we just park it. And once we heard, we'd come back to council. So now we've got a condition, and the conditional approval is based on us being able to negotiate a contract with a consulting firm that will actually do the project. So what the BDO zone designation is, in very quick terms, is they look at biomass. So wood waste in our area, or they can look at agricultural waste as well, and determine the volume on a sustainable basis year to year. And then they give a community such as ours a rating of AAA, AA, A. And then communities use that as a marketing tool to tell forestry-related industries or businesses, hey, come set up shop here because we've got X number of tons of waste wood every year, and here's the type of waste wood we have, and you can use it to do chips and trinkets or plywood or whatever the case might be. So it's a marketing tool, and the agricultural sector can also use it for ag waste. And so right now we've got to go back to, I think there's only one firm that actually does this type of work. The estimate that they provided was 2+ years ago. So we'd have to go back, reconfirm everything, and come back to council. So if council wishes to pursue this, and the other thing that I'm thinking of is this will be brought back to the advisory committee as well to see what, if they still see this as a priority project to move forward. If we decide not to move forward with it, we let the funding go, but it won't cost our taxpayers $55,000 to do it. So all this to say that I'll be coming back to council shortly with options and recommendations, both from staff and the advisory committee on this as well. The other line items is the former mill site. We're obviously doing some environmental site assessments. Following that, we'll have some brownfield remediation planning to do, and we'll need some funding to, some money to move forward with that. Same goes with the housing strategies. Those are still all part of council's term plan. They're priorities of yours, so they're priorities of ours. So we will need to implement some of our strategies there. And the last 10,000 would be to provide some seed money to our Economic Development Advisory Committee to implement special projects of their own or priorities, goals, and objectives. And that concludes my presentation, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, I forgot about your special project sheet there, so thank you for doing that. And without any other questions on economic development services, we'll move to Strategic and Corporate Services, please.
The corporate services doesn't have anywhere near as an exciting capital budget as everyone else does. Corporate services capital does tend to be tied to technology, technology both that serves the core group here that supports the rest of it, and the larger bits that actually do support the entire municipality. So if we have to do upgrades to our entire system, it tends to sit in the corporate services budget. So we've got a couple projects carrying forward from 2023. Council chip equipment upgrade, that's actually the projector there, that just it's end of life. And then the archive equipment is just a better system for holding our video backups from the council meeting. Right now, they've got them in a external drive. This just is a better archiving system, a better system for holding the video backups. So those are just carrying forward from 2023. New phone system we talked a little bit about during operating. So this is both the again, the network system that comes in, and there's an allowance for some handsets. A lot of the handsets aren't going to need to be replaced, so there is a bit of contingency money that's in that number. And as we talked during operating, the rollover to the new phone system is saving us in excess of $20,000 a year in operating costs. So it's going to have a very fast payback for us when we make the transition. IT replacement is just laptops, desktops for the corporate services crew. Surveillance and security, we did some camera upgrades this year. This is actually a project that's sort of been on the burner for a little while to move to multi-factor authentication tokens. So remove passwords from things and require people to actually carry keys and tokens in order to even access laptops. It's just to create greater security. And it is a lot just where the industry is going on security. Upgrade cabling at Town Hall, and I'm going to pretend to talk like I, am an IT person here and all the rest of that kind of stuff. But just our fiber cabling has reached the limits that copper cable can provide. And so this is actually to replace the cabling here, and because the cabling here serves our servers, which everybody comes into, it will just sort of increase the speeds. And so this is to do some fiber optic work between our server rooms and downstairs and what goes to our outside offices. Spare projectors, just a kind of a small fleet of 2 projectors, much smaller than that. We do still use projectors when we go out to do presentations in other communities, when we're doing some of the consultations, if we're out at the the Verna Arena doing a community a town hall type style thing, as well as within training and within some of the departments here in town. So that was just a couple projectors to carry out. And then just some office upgrades. So we have a new IT systems engineer that has started. She was part of the 2023 budget to get the new staff on. And now that we've got the new staff, it's just to do some of those office upgrades so that her office is as functional and well equipped to work and support the rest of the municipality.
You're replacing that?
That's the plan, yes.
We use it?
Not a lot anymore since we've got these here. So, it is not used a lot. There may be situations where we've got folks coming in from outside or things like that, or we've got presentations, but honestly, we do use these a lot. And I asked our IT guy about that as well, because I've moved, entirely when we're doing staff training and presentations to using these screens. So certainly it is one of those things that if we, decide not to proceed with, I don't know that we're going to miss it. I
get the portable ones for when we're out at different places where we don't have the big.
Can I ask a question? Is it in fact reserve level? If they cut this out, do they save $8,000?
Yeah, it will stay in reserve. It
will stay in reserve.
It will stay in reserve. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I wouldn't give the go ahead for that quite yet.
Question. And I'm not sure if it's in regards to corporate services, but I know last year we budgeted or we approved the 50% position for the IT person. So where does the other 50%, where does it come from? Because we only approved half of the salary, so we don't pay him the first 6 months under a year. I'm just wondering, where does it fit into the budget this
year? So we did recently actually hire that position. So when you were looking at your operating budget, when you're looking at how much the salary lines moved, some of it was to do with collective agreement increases, and some of it was to do with moving from, yes, we only had a half a year budgeted to now having a full year budgeted. So that's in your operating budget already.
Okay, so you put it in the
Yep.
Thank you. And good idea, change the phone system to IP based. So I agree with that. Save a ton of money.
Other questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Braddock. That was an easy one for you. And last but not least, Keith Bluffton, you've been quietly, patiently waiting for your turn. So I'll happily pass the floor to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. The West Nipissing Fire and Emergency Service, as you see in the spreadsheet, starts with the highest and we work our way down to the lowest items. Our fleet, we're looking at the carryover from the apparatus that was approved in last year's budget due to constraints and trying to get RFPs together and out. There's a lot of details that go into when you're speccing out fire apparatus. And we just, Lord behold, ran out of time. However, I am also looking at a replacement of one of our other apparatus, being a tanker. So the fleet of tankers that we currently have, most of them are from the amalgamation period. The two chiefs ago had acquired, most of their tankers are running 1999s, 2000, 2001s. They're getting tired. So we're looking at replacing one of those. New item that's on the list is aluminum boat and motor. Recently, we had to go do a water rescue up in one of the lakes to the north. We were able to get the big boat in there, but most of those lakes where you're launching is fairly shallow. We've had a couple calls last summer where we were dealing with wildland fires and having to access either waterway or in around the backway with ATVs and whatnot. So the idea with the small aluminum boat, small motor, gets us into those smaller lakes and be able to transport. Also on, oh, sorry, any?
I'll just stop at fleet.
Yeah.
If there's any questions on fleet? I have one question. When you look at, say, purchasing something like a new tanker, does the new equipment come to Station 1 and then the older?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. So when I'm looking at the equipment, we're evaluating which ones get used the most. So that there's the usage as well as the wear and tear that the tanker, in this case, has received. Can we still use it in one of the stations that perhaps has less call volume and get another year or two out of it and take one of the older ones out of the fleet that's now costing us much more money to maintain and keep on the road?
Okay. That's great. Thank you. Councilor Donahue?
Just to refresh my memory, the fire apparatus that was carried over, was that a fire truck?
Yes, the carryover from 2023, that's the, we were looking at replacing the rescue.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chief, if you'd like to continue.
Councillor Pedre?
I'm sorry, you have to be a little more obvious.
Well, I thought you.
Councillor Pedre.
Thank you. The second one for the fire apparatus, the 400,000, is that for one or two?
That's just for one truck.
For one tanker?
Yeah. The prices have increased anywhere from 30 to 40% from, of course, as the same with Public Works and all other vehicles. The price has increased substantially. I am looking at some options that once we get the RFPs out that I can present to council, and it'll be council's decision if we look at a sole source or what our options are in those cases. But that'll be a council decision.
I think we can keep it for another year. I heard there's a mechanic in the yard.
Yeah. We have a few of us that are doing everything we can to keep these things going.
Thank you. Councillor O'Shea?
I just had a quick question, and it kind of ties with, I guess, all the fleet budgets. Is there any cooperative venues or ventures that have been entertained or looked at to, have economies of scale? So let's say if, I know there was something quite a few years ago with the police, whenever they buy something, there was an agreement with Ford and some types.
Madam Mayor, LAS has a cooperative purchasing on some. We do look at those prices. It has been beneficial to some, but I can tell you in group purchasing that a couple of things come into play with that too, is that they're setting it up on an average, and sometimes we have better buying power than some of the small ones. So you have to kind of have a look at that, and then you have to look at the total product cost as well, with where you're servicing and what have you as well. So there's a lot of factors that come into play with that, but certainly from a creative perspective, I think right now LAS has a group purchasing program, and we can kind of have a look at that. But our tendering process tends to give us around the same or better price. Champion, let's say for graders, they're on that list. What they quote and what we get, it's not much difference. In fact, probably cheaper the way we get them.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good.
Continue.
So next on our list is the assets, self-containing breathing apparatus, or better known as SCBA's. I am projecting $1,000 or $100,000, sorry, and that's to replace 10 SCBA units. We have in some of our stations where our older systems are 2007s. So this would get new ones for those two stations, split the units that we're looking at, bring those ones, the 2007s, get rid of those, and then move whatever other ones we have to other stations to bring them up to at least something which would put us at 2013 as our oldest additions that we're using. Bunker suits, that's an ongoing replacement. My plan is if we can replace 12 every year and stay ahead of the game, they have a 10-year cycle life for interior and exposure fire suppression. Once that 10 years is up, and this is under the NFPA regulations, National Fire Protection, and 10 years for interior. If we continue with 12 suits, roughly 12 suits every year, it keeps us ahead of that game so that we're not looking at suddenly having to replace 30 suits all in one shot. Those have also increased, I might add for council's information, last year's cost to this year's cost, there's been a 25% increase on costing on those suits. IT replacement, as Ms. Craddock has mentioned, that's across all departments. It's our IT, our computers, our communications equipment. Any questions with respect to assets?
I'll ask one question. So the bunker suits, can you say again, our full-time complement versus our volunteer complement?
Doesn't matter. All their suits are 10-year life expectancy.
No, I know, but so we have 120 people that we need to outfit. That's my question.
Over time.
What's that?
So.
Because you're saying the suits have a 10-year life expectancy. You want to buy 10 this,
How many
12 this year.
I have 100 volunteers, 110 volunteers.
Okay.
Including our
That was my
full-times. Okay, sorry.
That is a question.
Okay.
Sorry. Excellent. That number's increased since you came on board, I understand.
It has, and I do have another stack of applicants, so
excellent news.
That'll be a conversation for a later time. It's late.
That's great. Thank you very much, Chief. Councillor St. Louis?
Through you, Madam Chair, bunker suits, Chief, does that include everything? Glove, boots, balaclavas, helmet?
No, that's just strictly the jackets and pants.
So where do?
Gloves, helmets, and boots. That goes into operating.
Okay.
Because we're able to replace a smaller amount over as need basis, whereas the bunker suits, 12 suits at basically $3,500 to $3,800, and that's where that large cost comes in.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, and if you'd like to conclude with your facilities costs.
Very good. So on the asset side of it, as far as our facilities, the interior repairs to River Valley. So what I've been working on in 2023 was getting our roofs repaired, getting our water leaks stopped, heat trace cables, gutter systems to ensure that we stop the water from leaking inside the buildings. River Valley, we did some work. Verner, we've done some work. Laving, we've done some work. Crystal Falls, we did some work. Comico, we did some work. So the idea is to get the exteriors fixed. Once we know that, before we spend money on fixing the interiors, resolve the problems on the outsides. It looks like we've resolved all our issues as far as water leaking in. So the next phase to my buildings is get the insulation and the damaged ceiling tiles and get that work done within the building. River Valley sustained probably the most damage from water leaking in last spring. So that's why it's up at the top of the list. Water diversion in Crystal Falls, basically it's to do some landscaping work to get the water away from the building down at the ground level. Currently what's happening come springtime with the way the building is away from the road, it's on a downward slope. The water pools in there and then starts running inside the building. And before long, we're going to have damage in there between the ice buildup outside the door and then what's running in and up along the walls on the inside. The building audit station 1B, what we've noticed this summer, the back wall that faces Dover Court is buckling down on the bottom. We're suspecting it may be just insulation that has dropped and is pushing the outside wall, but the inside is all drywall. So the idea is to get somebody in to take a look at that. If we have to remove the exterior panels and see where our damage is coming from and get it fixed before it becomes a major issue. The oil tank replacements, both for Living and River Valley. So I had all furnaces inspected and tested, maintained, upgraded. They have informed me that our oil-fired furnaces in both those facilities are still in good shape to get us through another 5-10 years. But the oil tanks are up on their 5-year to 10-year life expectancies. So they will not pass them again. The reason it's in as a capital budget item, it's over the $5,000 benchmark, and the expectancy of those is at least 10 years.
Okay. Any questions on the facilities provided by Chief? Councilor Pellerin?
Is there any, are you looking at maybe replacing him on the short term, long term to heat pumps or stuff like this? Because I can imagine even the insurance companies going away from the oil tanks, nobody is.
Yes, Councilor Pellerin, that was something that I had discussed with Ms. Craddock and our CAO. The challenge came that by the time the inspections were done, it was into late fall. So to change the system over didn't allow us any time. This was the more cost-effective solution, but I do agree insurance companies are looking at that. It is something that we can look in long-term planning, change them to whether it's a heat pump system or some other form of propane heat. So it is something on the radar, but this is our quick fix for this winter.
Thank you.
So your intention would be with an approved budget to have those replaced sooner rather than later? You're not going to wait out the winter and?
The oil tanks, they have to be replaced. So I've received an extension from Co-op that to get me 90 days.
Okay.
So they will keep filling it for 90 days, but it is something that's going to have to be replaced. So current schedule is right now they're doing all their exterior tanks for winter. We're looking at January for them to replace these because they're inside the building. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Good. That was quite the marathon. Thank you very much, everybody. And I'm comfortable to read our closing bylaws.
Well, perhaps I can make a few comments on that.
I'm sorry.
So we obviously haven't passed the budget, so I'm recommending tomorrow night.
No.
I had another question too. What's the response time in a fire that happens at a fire hall?
It could range from 0 to it all depends.
So, but anyway, so you've gotten the presentation. I have to be very blunt in my sales pitch to council, and I think this is a sales pitch council agrees with. The reason we're doing this and the reason you've had these capital presentations so that the staff can get going on preparing the documentation to tender as soon as possible. I have taken the liberty of suggesting to Ms. Henning and Ms. Craddock to start the process with the assumption of those that are more of a sure bet, recognizing that they are your best folks to know with the money that they provide now, whatever. Certainly there's a question as to one of the roads now, so we won't necessarily work on that until we have final approval at council that Clare Road stays on the list. But I would hope that council in short order can provide the directive to staff to at least approve those expenditure levels for capital, and so that they can move on and we can get the benefit that we had as related by Councillor Rivard at the council meeting. So that would be my big ask. And then just from a housekeeping perspective, I think now reading the mayor's mind and comments is that now is the time for contemplation with all of council. You've got your information. You're going to want to raise your questions, and the next meeting will be down to getting to an acceptable budget. I don't think it has to be that much more complicated than what it is. Yeah, so that's where we're at. So Madam Mayor, I'd leave it to you and to council now if we can to,
So the next meeting?
yeah, please.
Well, we don't have council next week. I'm not sure what we had. Last week of the month, we don't usually have a lot of committees or any commitments. So, you know, I don't like Mondays, but how would people be available on Tuesday evening? No from Councillor St. Louis. Wednesday, no for Councillor Restoll. Wednesday evening? No for, okay. And Thursday evening.
We have economic.
What about Monday?
Monday?
Oh,
I'm in Ottawa.
Thursday is a maybe.
Can you dial in? Councillor St. Louis, or are you incapacitated?
At the Ottawa Senators.
Between
Can't
hunting
dial
and
in.
hockey, I'm surprised we can ever
I
get.
can dial in, you guys can.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll make anything work, but I have to.
yeah, Tuesday, sorry, who was no,
You gotta go.
just you?
Come back Tuesday.
You, okay. And Wednesday was no
Oh,
to
it's
you,
for-
and Thursday was no to who?
I'm okay. for-
Madam Mayor, just for historical sake, when we were doing these meetings like that,
Yes.
we wouldn't go with a simple majority, but recognizing that everybody would never, ever be able to, you're going to be going to 2026 if you keep on trying. We usually had a 6 of 9 kind of thing. I think that's low to finalize a budget, but 7, if you have 7, I think you should go.
Can I see Thursday, just say we'll work out the rest of it, but Thursday, yes, yes. Everybody. Thursday, next Thursday, 6 o'clock? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, confirmed for that, and Councillor Rivard, you may be excused. He's got some.
Can I ask?
Yes.
Just to Mr. Barbeau's question, just in regards to the capital budget, because I know they want to move forward, except for the items that we questions, like Cano,
Yeah.
pickleball, maybe Leclerc Road. I'll try to convince them, we'll see. But besides the items that we questioned, like, could we actually just say we agree with what's been proposed in the capital budget? Because I think that's what
I know, but is
Mr. Barbeau was asking.
Does a week make a difference?
No, a week doesn't make a difference, but they will start preparing those that they have certainty to, and I'm pretty sure we have certainty on those matters. So they're going to be starting the process, and if their work is in vain, alas.
Alas.
Yeah, I have another off agenda. While we have staff here, is that
Okay.
we're going to have an item on next meeting to discuss the petition, and I just want to convey to council that we received an invitation to present what services and facilities are available by DSAB with warming centers and low-barrier housing. So just to let you know, if you have availability and we can coincide some availability, Madam Mayor, then I can coordinate that with the folks in North Bay.
That's in North Bay to actually go and view some of the facilities?
That is, yeah, for a tour of the new low barrier shelter and other issues. They're prepared to provide us with the information so that council on a go-forward basis can visualize and see what is actually there for us.
Mhm.
So I just,
I'm happy to do that. Is there a specific date or time that they're proposing?
no, there isn't. They've left it with us, and I was just thinking, you know, it could be the Monday after if you want. I was just kind of thinking preparation, if this influences your thinking one way or the other, whether you're not satisfied or satisfied with the petition discussion that's going to happen at the first meeting in December, then it would, my advice to you would be prior to that. So even if it's the Monday prior, that's fine.
So why don't I communicate with council via email with some alternatives? I think it'd be a great opportunity for anybody who can do it, for those who work in or near North Bay. Maybe we can do it sometime where you're not making an extra trip out. But from what I understand, you've toured Councilor Restwell's toured the new facility, and it really is something to see that the work that's been done. So thank you for bringing that up. I will communicate with council tomorrow and try to arrange dates that will work for the majority of us who are interested. If you can, you can. If not, we'll tell you stories over a cup of tea. And that is a very nice offer of DSAB, and I think it would do us all good to really visualize the services that are available there. So great, thank you. Councilor Rest.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to add, it's getting late, really quick. It's worth your time to go see, because we talk a lot about concepts and, what's a warming center, what's a low barrier shelter, what's transitional housing, and to see what it really means. I was very impressed with the tour and gaining information and just being able to experience it. I think it's really worth people's time.
Okay, so yeah, we'll definitely send something out to everybody tomorrow. Thank you to all staff for spending a lovely Thursday evening with us, after Saturday with us. Thank you to councilors for making the time for 3 meetings in 1 week. Do appreciate it. And if nobody has anything else, I will. Okay, Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Teissier. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-94 being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality to confirm the proceedings of council at its budget meeting held on November 23rd, 2023 shall come into force with effect on the day it is passed.
Okay, all in favor?
It is moved by Councillor Crushane and seconded by Councillor St. Louis. Be it resolved that the meeting of council held on November 23rd, 2023 be adjourned.
All in favor?